The White House attempted to interfere in the special counsel investigation of Joe Biden. And at the hearing today, Robert Hur testified it was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Democrats were accidentally defending Donald Trump in this weird way. I don't understand. And Republicans were arguing. Look, the Democrats were saying that Robert Hur was trying to make Joe Biden look bad so that Trump would win. And that Trump was also not of sound mind and was senile, which would effectively mean he can't be prosecuted, because that was Robert Hur's argument, that Joe Biden, he's just, his memory's not good and you can't prove intent, which made literally no sense because the crime committed by Joe Biden was 7 years ago and none of this hearing makes any sense. In fact, Robert Hur, special counsel, confirmed that all of the criteria for a crime was met by Joe Biden. Joe Biden committed these crimes. He took classified documents. He had motive to do so, financial gain, his personal legacy. He knew that it was a crime to do so and even warned his ghostwriter when he revealed this information, be careful, some of this may be classified. Yet for some reason, Robert Hur's like, but we can't charge him because, his memory is bad. And so the argument from one member of Congress is like, so his memory was bad in 2017 when he committed the crime? Apparently so. Democrats like Adam Schiff accused Robert Hur of being a Republican partisan who was trying to help Donald Trump win. But I actually assume that, come on, as if the Democrat DOJ would appoint Robert Hur without, you're going to win the battle before it starts. They knew exactly what they were going to get out of it. And I think that Robert Hur just doesn't want to go after Joe. I think the double standard in the DOJ. But there are a lot of interesting political arguments we'll get into. I think the important one is the confirmation that the White House did reach out to them and try to influence the investigation. So we'll talk about that. Joseph Biden has won the Democratic nomination. Congratulations, Joe Biden. We are excited that you are the nominee because no one has any idea how you're going to win this one. And I think it's expected tonight. Donald Trump should win the GOP nomination, getting more than enough delegates to be the official nominee. He's already the presumptive nominee, so it's a big waste of time. But we'll talk about that, plus a bunch of other stories leaked. I shouldn't say leaked, but undercover footage of Boeing employees saying they would not want to fly on these planes is particularly interesting. So, my friends, before we get started with all that, head over to castbrew.com and pick up coffee. And I recommend you buy Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience, because once we sell out of the latest run, we will be discontinuing the Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience, as many of you may be aware, because it actually was trending nationwide on Twitter. This morning at 9:48 a.m., Mr. Bokus passed. We brought him out into the yard and laid him in the grass so that he could watch the chickens one last time. And that got his juices flowing. He was unable to walk. He was groaning. We laid him in the grass, gave him some in the sun, and he immediately started sniffing, and it seemed to give him a little bit of energy. But after about an hour of laying there, he just, that was it. And he was fighting. He was fighting the whole time. He was refusing to give up. But Mr. Bokus, unfortunately, had underdeveloped kidneys, as he was a street cat, and they weren't enough for his adult kitty body. His kidneys were working overtime nonstop because they were underdeveloped, and it shortened his lifespan dramatically to about 5.5 years. But we will be discontinuing the Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience. We will be making a different coffee after the fact, but this will be the last. So this is the last of it. So if you want to get the bag, his picture's on the back, and that will be the last run of this particular blend. And then we'll have some like in memoriam version or whatever. But when you buy Cast Brew, you are supporting the show. You are supporting our physical location. Appalachian Nights is so insanely popular. We're struggling to keep it in stock, but of course, you can all go buy that Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience and give it a try. And that'll be the last of it. And shout out to Alex Stein. We're big fans. Cast Brew sponsors Alex Stein's show. He's in the hospital, I guess. So I hope he's okay. Said something about his heart.
Yeah, praying for him.
It's breaking.
We love you, Alex.
For Bokus.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
right.
I thought I was hit hard by Mr. Bokus' passing. I wasn't able to do a full show today. Then I found out Alex was in the hospital. I mean, geez. It's worried me. But, in all seriousness, we have the Alex Stein's Primetime Grind 2 times caffeine. And Alex requested, when I asked him if, we would make a blend for you, we'll sponsor the show. He said, just give the proceeds to a cat charity. So we're actually waiting to calculate the probably the end of the quarter, maybe like end of March, calculate how much we've made off of the Alex Stein blend. And then we're going to give Alex Stein's percentage goes straight to a cat charity.
He loves cats. At his studio, like literally cats parade behind him down to his place. It was like a Disney movie. That's
right. Also, head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly, and you'll get access to the uncensored members only show coming up tonight at 10 p.m., as well as our Discord server. This is how we operate the show. We're member funded principally. We do sponsor spots sometime, but for the most part, but Cast Brew is how we sponsor ourselves. And for the most part, it is memberships at timcast.com. So if you like the work that we're doing, please go to timcast.com, click join us, become a member. But also don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Joining us tonight to talk about this and a whole lot more is Curt Mills.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Who are you? What do you do?
I'm the executive director of a magazine called The American Conservative. We're out in D.C., so...
Yeah. Right on. So you should know a lot about all of this stuff.
We try to.
All right. It should be fun. Thanks for hanging out. Got Hannah Claire hanging out.
Hey, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. Shane's back tonight.
What's up? It's good to be back. I'm very sorry about Mr. Bokus. Glad we had a moment with him last night after the show. I grew up on a horse farm, buried lots of animals. I remember my first horse funeral was like a year old, and I had a life of funerals out on a farm, and it never got easier. So I know the pain of losing an animal. It's horrible, no matter how much it happens. But you can find my writing at scanner.com, and happy to be back. Serge, what's good?
We can only assume that Mr. Mutton Chops is the next to go.
Oh, yeah?
He's the rooster that keeps escaping, and it's hilarious. And to be honest, we culled a good amount of the roosters and ate them.
Well, that was delicious.
It was delicious. Allison's rooster chili. But we spared Mr. Mutton Chops because he's hilarious and he always escapes. And I was like, that amount of courage should be rewarded, if only because it's short-lived.
Yeah, true. Rest in peace to Mr. Bokus. I'm ready to start when you are.
Here we go. We have this story from the Post-Millennial. White House tried to get special counsel to change Biden classified docs report before release. Her said that officials did, in fact, request certain edits and changes to the draft report. This is interesting because I believe it was reported to the contrary. Initially, the White House denied that they ever tried to interfere. Now, this is the special counsel, Robert Hur, who was testifying before the House Judiciary Committee earlier today in what may be, I think this testimony may be some of the most important testimony this country has ever heard, because this testimony exposes that there is no longer a country. I don't know how else to put it. Robert Hur identified multiple criteria that had to be met in order to justify criminally charging Joe Biden. He was asked several times by Republicans, was the criteria met? To which he kept saying no, but yes. And the reason why, the third criteria, I believe it was the willful retention of the documents or something to this effect. And he said, while there is evidence that Joe Biden did willfully retain these documents, knowingly breaking the law, he's got a bad memory. So we couldn't prove that he was willful when he did it, despite the fact he said he was doing it for financial gain and for his legacy. And he warned others that it was dangerous because it might be classified, but we can't prove that. It's like, wait, hold on. I kid you not. He was asked several times, Robert Hur. So Joe Biden was speaking with his ghostwriter, and he tells his ghostwriter, be careful, some of this might be classified. The ghostwriter then deletes that conversation, knowing there was a special counsel investigating it and that it was a crime. Obstructing justice, destroying evidence. There have been no criminal charges. When you have in congressional testimony a man saying, I kid you not, Joe Biden thought he was going to make money off his book. He was what's the word that I can't remember. He said that he was reserved to make this book happen or something like that. That there were people who were interested in buying it. He needed these documents for his legacy, and that is in the report factually. And I have to wonder, when we have this story that the White House tried to get special counsel to change the Biden classified docs report before its release, I have to wonder if what really happened is Robert Hur was like, oh yeah, Joe Biden broke the law and willfully retained the documents, shared the information with someone who had no clearance, knew he did it, and then the Biden White House went to him and said, we will destroy you and we will destroy your children unless you refuse to go after Biden. And this is what he ended up getting out of it. I can't tell you. It is shockingly insane. You know, Adam Schiff is arguing that Robert Hur was actually trying to help Trump win by saying that Joe Biden was, essentially a frail old man, well-to-do old man with a bad memory, when he didn't need to include that. And Robert Hur said, well, I did, to explain why we weren't charging him. And then, the Democrats were like, you could have said something like you lacked the evidence to prove intent. That's all. And that's true. I mean, Robert Hur didn't need to say, here's why. He could have literally just been like, however, evidence of intent, where ultimately the problem was, the reason why he did have to include it is because all the criteria has been met. Joe Biden took classified documents. He had them at multiple locations. I think it was like 6 locations. He did it for financial gain because he wanted to write a book and he knew the book was going to sell. He wanted to preserve his legacy. Apparently, this is what he was saying. Here's the wildest part of it. When Robert Hur was questioning Joe Biden, I kid you not, Joe Biden responds with, you step your foot off the accelerator until it says launch. Transcript then indicates makes car sound, which means Joe Biden literally, when talking to the special counsel and being investigated, he's like, here, so the Corvette's great. You put your foot on the accelerator, you hold it down until it says launch, take your foot off the brake, and then brr, brr. He literally said, this is what Dylan Hausman says, Joe Biden literally said, my Corvette go burr, when Hur pleaded with him to answer actual questions. I watched this testimony and I was like, there's no United States.
There's no reality.
Look, a country, a legitimate functioning country with a legitimate functioning law enforcement, this does not happen in. But we're a banana republic. The sitting president broke the law 7 years ago. The argument from Robert Hur is that Joe Biden today, his memory is bad, so, what are we going to do? This was 7 years ago. It was Afghanistan documents from when he was vice president. Yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? I guess that's the point. What are we going to do about it? Now, a few things to say. Maybe Robert Hur was like, if we indict him, then they can bring in Gavin Newsom. They can justify something. So let's just let him stay president, I guess.
His memory's bad, so let's put him in the White House. That sounds good. It is amazing. To me, this comes across as protecting Biden at any cost. And for some reason, instead of saying we couldn't establish intent, saying, well, he has bad memory, can't always trust everything he says, somehow seemed like a better conclusion to draw. Which to me as an American citizen sounds awful. We don't know what this guy's going to say and he can't remember anything. Good thing he's making all of our decisions right now. To
what degree do you think they're protecting him? Because it's like, yeah, they're protecting him, but they're also parading this brain dead person out before everyone. I think I've been thinking a lot about FDR and the media and how the media protected FDR's paralysis from the people. And if you even go to FDR's website, they'll talk about how if a journalist reported on his weak legs, they'd go after those journalists and like shake him down, basically. Mm-hmm. So how are they protecting Biden? Because they're not hiding his Alzheimer's, whatever he's got going on, like they used to hide.
But what if they are hiding it? This is the best they can do to hide it.
Or are they hiding it to a point where they can still get him across the finish line to the next election and then do something, some Hail Mary with Gavin Newsom?
After 2020, my brain is just jelly.
Like Biden's.
We're all Biden.
We've been Bidened. No, because I think it's fair to say that the general political commentary assessment of the 2020 election was sound, but no one saw the ballot harvesting coming and the procedural changes. So when we're looking at, I think the best example is Moody's Analytics, which is historically accurate, says the economy is good, Trump's going to win, and there's actually a slim potential for a serious victory for Donald Trump. And then Trump ends up winning all the bellwethers, but loses. He ends up with more votes than any sitting president and loses, which has never happened before. So all of these metrics were indicating that Trump should have won, except for Democrats changed the rules, were ballot harvesting and operating what Time Magazine called a shadow campaign, which they refer to, Time Magazine as a conspiracy. Yep. I could not have seen that Time Magazine's conspiracy coming.
Is that article still live?
Yes.
It's amazing it's still out there. It's a crazy article.
And it quite literally says there was a conspiracy unfolding from corporate executives and politicos to stop Trump from winning.
They're like, Trump was calling it conspiracy. He would technically be right because what we did is crazy.
No, they literally say it was.
I know.
They're not even saying it wasn't. They're saying they literally engaged in a conspiracy.
Yeah, and this is how we did it.
So after that happens, I'm kind of like, okay, no sane human being could think that Trump is going to lose this one. Something we can't predict is going to happen. I have no idea. Or maybe it's just, that's it. The establishment powers have shattered.
Do you think we make it to an election normally? Or is there a weird Hail Mary thing happening from either side?
Yeah, I tend to think we're going to. I mean, of course, this is the prediction business. I think that we actually do, as you mentioned, have sort of PTSD from 2020. So we do assume that there's going to be this other shoe to drop. Yeah. There's going to be this magic
October
door.
Surprise.
Yeah, magic door that opens and they're going to get rid of Biden, or something spectacular like an assassination could happen. Of course, all within the zone of possibility. But I think an underrated possibility, if not the likelihood, is that none of this happens. We do get our rematch, and that the forces are are aligning to make both of them pretty strong. I sort of actually think, in a weird way, this was the result that made it most likely that Biden will be the Democratic nominee, i.e. there won't be
won.
Well, they're holding out. Okay, so I'm well on record in saying that I think the Biden replacement thing is like the idea they're going to put Newsom in there as a sort of boomer conspiracy theory.
We call that Biden replacement theory.
But yeah, I think
You're against that happening before the election, or
I think
even
it's
after the
crazy.
election?
I mean, okay. I think Biden like is the president. Like it's like a real thing. There's like a real guy called Joe Biden.
Okay, I agree. We already have issues, you and me now.
Well,
I don't know about that.
I know there are people who think there's
He's
like
a hologram or a deep
It's
fake
a
or
glass
clone.
plate.
Yeah.
And they project.
or he's an actor or
Yes.
something.
Well, yes, to all those
By-
things. We
by
can disagree.
Dan.
We can disagree on that.
All right, there's somebody who bears an awful amount of resemblance occupying the Oval Office
No,
right
no,
now.
occupying the across the street studio replica of
And I do think he is endowed of certain authority of the state, and he can do certain things. And so, while there may be a wide array of people in the American establishment who want him to take a hike, if he really wants to be persistent in this, he's gonna do it. And I think if he had been indicted, it would have undermined his case that he is sort of squeaky clean and that look how much better he is than Trump. So I think it actually bolsters his credibility within the party. But outside of the party, I think this is actually the result that makes him the weakest plausible general election candidate that he could have been, because it is going to make the Republicans look like they are the underdog enemies of the state. Look at the way the Democrats roll. They'll indict the Republican nominee for 95 different felonies. And look at the way the Republicans roll, which is that they won't weaponize the justice system. And however, we have this sort of, Spock-like Republican prosecutor person just throwing a nice little aside that they think the president of the United States actually isn't capable of executing his duties. And I think it's withering. Like, I think it's bad to be indicted. I think Trump's life is more acutely stressful than Biden's. But in terms of the sympathy of the average voter, Biden looks like a bit of a bully here, and Trump looks like the underdog.
What if just on election night or like right before they agree to debate, and then quite literally both Trump and Biden just collapse on stage? Just like,
it's totally possible. I'm not saying
just
like
both of them, and we're like, wow, and nobody expected that. I mean, I thought Trump was pretty good, but then the argument the Democrats have is, Trump's old too.
people don't drop like that as much anymore. It's not Russia, right? They don't have,
Right.
They don't have,
It's
they
not
don't have gravity
You
problems.
haven't watched Suddenly Died then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I
Or
mean,
died
it's just.
suddenly, sorry.
I mean, Biden had a brain aneurysm in the '80s, so his late '40s. And
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's young.
So, I mean, but he's had like 35 post-brain aneurysm. He's had more post-brain aneurysm years than I have had life.
Right.
Like he had an aneurysm in 87 or 88. I'm
Right.
born in 1990. So he's really had. I mean, they really do keep these guys rolling. Like I think he's.
That's why he plagiarizes all the time. He can't come up with his own stuff. I got to just keep taking from the past.
Well, I actually think this is sort of my pet theory about why his thinking is so obviously garbled. So Trump sort of just engages in the world by just literally saying whatever he wants, and that's kind of how he's rolled for his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie Sanders, our other very elderly celebrity politician, he just he's got a script. It's always the bankers. It's always the overclass. It's always the capitalists. Biden, by contrast, has to quadruple triangulate constantly. Which side of the party is not ascendant? What thing can't I say? And I think that works when you're in your 40s or your 50s, but it must be super confusing in your ninth decade.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been thinking a lot about how Biden was on a Colbert appearance like 10 years ago. Well, no, it was probably 2015 or 2014 before the 2016 election. And I've never liked Joe Biden. I hate the crime bill. I think he's just a thug and a liar. But I remember feeling a bit of remorse for him in that interview because he talks about grief and in a rather compelling way. Which is shocking because that's so different than the man we're seeing today. That was a huge one because that interview was so big because he told Colbert, I'm not going to run. And the audience, was like, oh, no, not you too. But, he was capable of speaking. not that long ago.
I mean, it was always very key to his approach. I mean, Trump obviously always has a call to greatness. There's the comedic element, or more than an element, to Trump. Obama is this almost like rock star orator,
Right.
Very smooth. Biden, rather, I believe it was the NYRB who called it, in Fenton O'Toole in 2020, who called Biden the country's designated mourner. He does actually have this sort of gear. Where he's able to say this, sort of language, feel your pain.
That's so true.
He ropes his own, even his celebrity family, he ropes in his own tragedy to the story. And one last bit, I do think that it would actually be weirdly, cosmically fitting if Biden were to end his career with an election loss. You got to remember, this is somebody who was elected to the Senate at 29, which is the youngest you can be. You have to be 30, but he turned 30 after he was senator-elect. Okay, so he was at U.S. Senate. He loses his wife and daughter in a car accident.
Yep.
He got sworn in at his children's hospital.
By the hospital, with the famous picture.
Wow.
Hunter was in that car, injured.
He's somebody who thought he was going to be the president in the 80s. He has a train record of a campaign in 1988, a basic train record of a campaign in 2008. Trump famously said that Obama rescued Biden from the scrap heap.
Right.
He becomes vice president. He does his duty. He does 8 years as VP, only to have Obama sideline him and shiv him effectively for Hillary Clinton, who then loses. He becomes president, the oldest president in American history, 35 years after he wanted to be the president. What would be more parallel for his whole life than to actually lose in this
My
unprecedented
argument
fashion?
would be that he'll actually. My gut says he will not make it. I think he might even make it, but real quick, he always references James Joyce's poem about dying. And I think that's
you're going to say that again. I want to pull this up from NBC News. This is it. The breaking news as of 7:09 p.m. Biden secures Democratic nomination with majority of delegates. NBC News projects. That's it. I don't really care, but we all expected it to happen. But this is it. They're saying Joe Biden's going to be the guy. Now, look, a few months ago, I predicted Joe Biden would not be the guy and that he would drop out. I do not understand the play Democrats have right now with Joe Biden. I don't understand it. And the only thing I can see is there is no play. They'll make a move and I'll go, okay, so maybe this is their strategy. The only thing I can think of right now is they're planning ahead. They expect Biden to lose. They don't want to throw in any other Democrat candidates who might actually lose because it could damage their prospects after the next 4 years. And so at this point, maybe Democrats are like, let's obstruct Trump moving into his second term. And let's start preparing for a new backbench that can approach the Democratic Party and go for the nomination in 2028. Because I do not see a path to victory at all. And, Mike Cernovich tweeted something that I found very serious. He said Trump is too far ahead at this point for 2020 tactics to work. And I agree. And then Cernovich said, so he expects or is worried there would be an assassination on Trump, as it's the only thing at this point which stops a Trump victory. And a Trump victory is probably going to be really, really bad for Democrats. Because look, Trump talked about locking her up and draining the swamp, but that was all pillow talk. He was trying to whisper sweet nothings into the ears of his base. And as soon as he gets elected, he goes, no, we're not going to do that. Let's calm down. I'd like to introduce you to my good friend, John Bolton. But they knifed him in the back anyway. At this point, Trump's probably like the gloves are off. Mm-hmm. Or maybe not. Maybe it's one big game, but I don't know. You were just saying, Shane, you think that Joe Biden's referencing this poem and he's not going to make it.
Well, I think maybe the logical thing that happens, because I could see the replacement thing happening, but I also see he's a vessel for power for the left and they get him across the finish line and then he either bows out gracefully, in quotes, or he drops dead. And then my narrative arc, like what you were saying, but just a little different, is that it would be fitting for him to drop dead because his whole career is built around the death, the mourning, the grieving. Wow. And in so many speeches, you can go back and look at them. Some of them at funerals, some of them, the one was the last one he did before being sworn in. He always references James Joyce line about when I die, Dublin will be etched on my heart. And so he would say, but when I die, whatever town he's claiming to be from that time. Yeah, whichever Biden we're talking about will be etched across his heart.
What if the real conspiracy is that Trump and Biden have been working together this whole time and Biden is playing the villain so that America can weed out its enemies See, the thing is, the deep state wants Trump to win to revitalize American patriotism so that we can become strong again. But they know that if they come out and say it, you'll get opposition. So they play the opposite side, make Joe Biden the villain, but he's secretly working with Trump. And then, that's why Obama was like, you don't have to do this. And Joe Biden was like, I'm going to become the villain so that this country can succeed. And so he's going to,
So the deep state is pro-patriotism.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Interesting. I don't think I've heard that one before.
My conspiracy theory is that the deep state was like, people hate this country. How do we get them to like it? Well, if we just come out and say America is good, that will embolden the opposition. They'll start attacking us. I mean, look at Iraq and Afghanistan. Everybody was like, screw the military-industrial complex. So Trump comes in and represents the underdog anti-establishment, make America great again. But the bad guys who hate, who push all the most awful things, who make garbage movies, who insult this country, eventually push everyone, including Gen Z, into the hands of American patriots. So, I mean, look, when you got Gen Z being like, yeah, I'm voting for Trump, and the latest poll was like 65% thought that Trump would do well. I'm kidding. I don't actually think the deep state is trying to prop up Trump. But I'm like, if you were trying to prop up Trump, what would you do different?
They just can't stop doing what they're doing. And
They're like, I got an idea. How do we get an entire generation to want to support America, secure its borders, and defend its international interests? Give away the inheritance of Gen Z to non-citizens.
Yeah.
And then they revolt, and you build an entire generation of people who are like MAGA.
Yeah, also lock them up for a couple years. Don't
Yep.
let them put them online only and then tank the economy so they feel really frustrated. With
What would you do different? And Joe Biden, I mean, they were like, we need someone deeply, deeply unlikable. Someone who is seen on camera groping women and sniffing children, who's got a history of family corruption and is just plainly not cool and just totally unlikable. And they're like, we'll make him the villain. And then we'll get the celebrity that everyone loved up until he ran. Like, it just, that's the only conspiracy theory that makes sense at this point. Otherwise, the uniparty is just failing.
I don't know many progressive or Democrats who say like, no, I think Joe Biden's a great guy. I really respect. I don't know many people who talk like that, but I do know a lot of people who don't like Trump. So in some ways, I think this idea that Joe Biden is the villain works for a certain sect of people, but I think for other people, there is no way to spin Trump as anything other than awful. And they won't, that you could put an actual sock puppet in Joe Biden's spot and they'd be like, probably would do a better job.
I just heard from
than
a
Trump.
friend who said they're voting for Biden to save democracy, and they said it with a straight face.
Yeah, but they don't like Biden. They're not saying I'm voting for Biden because I think he's inspirational, because he's got great policies, because he represents the kind of man that we'd like to see in America. They're just like, well, no Trump.
Yeah, that's all it is.
I do think he's necessary, though. I mean, I'm not sure I fully agree. I think he's the strongest possible Democratic nominee.
Really?
That's not saying a lot
you
of the
think more
Democrats.
so than like, I don't like this person at all, but more so than a Gavin?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
How so?
Well, first of all, I mean, you can't underrate the sheer name recognition of Biden.
Right.
I mean, he's been in politics for 50 years.
Yeah.
He's run for president
Just
3 times.
Obama spinoff.
Yeah, this will be the 4th national ballot he's appeared on.
Right.
Right. He's appeared on as vice president twice.
Yeah.
And I think it's absolutely necessary for the essential fiction of the pitch that they're presenting forward, which is that the Democrats are not a radical party. That they have this sort of kindly old white man centrist from 1995, and it's very critical in these suburban districts that he's not that scary. If they put someone like Gavin Newsom, for instance, the entire election will instantly become a referendum on California.
Yeah.
And so they will run endless needle pictures from San Francisco, and I think people understand that California is terribly run. That is the ruination of paradise.
But what about Michelle Obama?
Was she particularly likable in office? I mean, I think everyone's being sort of memory hold on this, or she was not I don't think her approval rating was that high as first lady.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think Biden is clearly a better politician than Hillary
I feel
Clinton.
like Gavin's been trying to clean up his act, and people do have unfortunately a short memory.
I think he's savvy.
Yeah.
I think he's I'm
apologized.
not underrating him, but I think there's 2 main problems.
Right.
One, the California albatross, which they will run on, and Trump will like running on it.
yeah.
And then number two, it is not demonstrated. We talked about how narrow the margins were in 2020. It is not demonstrated that Newsom, especially somebody who did not go through the primary is over.
Yep.
It is not demonstrated that Newsom has a particular relationship with African American voters. That is going to be the key for the turnout of the Democrats. Is Newsom going to be able to turn out black voters in Phoenix, Milwaukee, Detroit, Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Vegas?
And black voters love Joe Biden. Because
Correct.
when he said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, they were like, well, that
He literally got away with that.
to us.
Literally with that. Like, I don't think Newsom would get away with that.
What do you think
wild.
of Dean Phillips' campaign? Because he tried to spin himself as like the future, the moderate, an alternative to sort of a drifting Joe Biden administration.
I think if anyone care to watch Phillips' interview, like there's a Phillips interview with Bill Maher, he's actually pretty smooth.
He's young and he's successful.
but
He got 1%.
I can-
And so
I-
I think Phillips is essentially mini Gavin Newsom. I think Newsom would run against would hit up a similar wall.
I have a simple answer to your question about why not Dean Phillips. And it's who?
It wasn't not why not Dean Phillips. It's what did you think of his campaign?
That was
Because
his slogan.
Who?
He
Yeah.
literally said who. I think it was the picture.
Really?
He
Something like
ran
that.
on. Yeah, he was open to the fact that he thought maybe he could win, but also acknowledged it was a long shot. And I think he's interesting because we had several prominent politicians come out and sort of argue the moderate ticket, right?
know what-
This is what Manchin was saying. Maybe I could be a unity ticket in a couple of years. And Dean Phillips didn't opt to run as an independent like JFK. He ran as a Democrat saying, we need a change. And he immediately backed Joe Biden as soon as he entered his campaign.
You know the problem with these politicians? Dean Phillips could have easily become the front runner. I strongly believe that any
That's the guy who made Talenti. That's so popular.
Not maybe not Newsom, but Dean Phillips could if he did something like, I don't know, handcuff himself to the doors of the Twitter HQ in New York or something like that, or X Corp. And what I mean is he did no big bang PR moves, nothing. So it's almost like, did you really try, dude? Because Laura Loomer handcuffed herself to Twitter HQ at the time and made herself the #1, I think, worldwide trend on the platform that banned her. She and then she took criminal aliens, and jumped over Nancy Pelosi's walls. I'm not suggesting Dean Phillips literally take criminal aliens and jump into Nancy Pelosi's house. I'm saying he did nothing to do a big bang, here I am on the stage. He literally, I guess, I didn't even know his slogan was who. He was his plan was, I will revel in the fact that I am an unknown and have no chance whatsoever in any way.
I think he was gambling that Biden was going to collapse, and I think he was also
But Newsom's
he
there,
was
I mean.
uber flattered by the Wall Street money. I mean, Bill Ackman, the sort of very famous Wall Street tycoon, threw money at him. I think they thought some sort of organic groundswell would occur, and it didn't happen. And
And I think he's
that's
trying
my
to
point.
get out
It could
in
have
front
if he
of
did
Newsom.
anything.
See, I think he's trying to soft get out in front of Newsom. He doesn't
I
want
got
to
it.
challenge Biden too directly, but he does want to set the stage for 2028 when possibly he has more name recognition because he ran now.
True, fair point.
we won't be talking about
But
it in
also,
2028.
what if, really?
I don't think we'll be talking about Mr. Phillips in 2028. Due respect to
What-
the good congressman.
What if he took those suction cup things and climbed Trump Tower?
That
There you
could
go.
have worked, but do you
Everyone would know his name
think,
then.
Do you think you could suction cup climb Trump Tower?
Me?
Yeah,
I mean, if it was like life or death,
but it's the presidency or not.
Is that enough of a motivation?
I would
risk it?
run from Trump Tower. I don't want to go anywhere near the presidency. But for someone like Dean Phillips, again, I'm not. It's meant to be a bit tongue in cheek and silly.
I know.
My point is, he did nothing on the level of climbing with suction cups. Remember that guy who did that? I was there in New York. I went there to watch it.
He's a pro, though, right?
Which one?
Yeah,
There's the
yeah,
one who does
yeah.
it for like.
Oh no! I think I was
abortion
there
rights.
when the guy. I think I was there when the guy climbed the tower, desperately trying to talk to Trump. He was like, "I'm a big fan. I'm a Trump supporter. I need to talk to him." And he climbed.
This
the-
guy had some suction cup skills, right?
I don't think. I don't
training.
think you actually need skills.
I would want some training.
Yeah, I need to know. how
No,
the
for
suction
sure.
cups
What
are
I mean
working.
is like, I'm sure he learned how to use them. I don't think he was like a pro suction cup guy.
And he made it.
Because you just you press the button and go, and then it's like it doesn't move, and then you just.
Are you cemented to the cup?
Right, that's the hard part. Is keeping your hands like this, like ice climbers. They have
Yeah.
to
I
work
suppose
their-
if I'm
that grip a
glued
lot.
to
But
it,
you're
but then you
standing.
make it to Trump.
You're
and then
standing
you have
on a
these
platform.
things glued to your hands.
No, you're standing. You're standing straight up,
okay.
and you can lift it and kick it and yeah.
Okay, this is
Any,
more-
anyway. Where are we talking?
A
about?
good suggestion
My
for
point
Dean
was-
Phillips if he wants to make his name.
trying to help him out.
Get a skywriter to write Dean Phillips. I mean, anything, dude.
Yeah.
But so what do you think happens? So then what do you think Trump wins? What do you think?
The general election?
Yeah.
I think it is Trump's to lose. I think they've got to be super careful though, because I think something could happen in the next 8 months. And so, what are the Republicans offering? I mean, if they keep to the baseline issues that won him the nomination in the presidency in 2016, and in my view, that is immigration, trade, and foreign policy, and they message discipline that to the hilt, the border, jobs going to China, and we should get out of these foreign wars, he will win the election. If it is a hodgepodge of weird Republican hobby horses, and there's no message discipline, honestly, closer to the 2020 effort, right? I mean, it was kind of doomed from the Keep America CAG. Remember this?
Keep America great.
CAG is he's better as an opposition candidate.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a poster. He's a critic. He always was, even before X, even before Twitter. This is nationally advantageous for him, and the indictments themselves do seem to have sharpened him. I mean, we were commenting before the show, the man's lost weight. He seems funnier than he did 4 years ago. His mood seems elevated. Most people who have been indicted 95 times, I feel like, would be
They have
near.
a funny sense of a view on life.
Trump thrives on this, and so if he can stay disciplined, I mean, even the tone that he struck after winning the Iowa caucus was very magnanimous. He talked about his father-in-law back in Slovenia. I believe the man's wife had just died. I mean, it was statesmanlike. But if it is just like this, whirlwind of complaints, and then one weird Republican initiative after another, where they get mired into talking about, tax cuts for the rich or cutting Social Security, it's going to make Trump's brand less independent for the GOP. Trump is stronger than the Republican brand himself.
Let's jump to this story. We have a tweet from Libs of TikTok. This is interesting. Libs tweets, whoa, Biden reportedly invited TikTok influencers to State of the Union and gave them a list of talking points to create content on to spread propaganda for him and boost him. Check out, I'll play just a little bit of this video.
Joe Biden invited 70 influencers to view his State of the Union address in order to...
I was one of the 70 influencers that was invited, so let me spill the tea with you. So I got this message, I want to say on Monday night. So I got an email from an agency, and I saw the people that were CC'd on, and I didn't recognize any of the other email addresses that were CC'd onto this invite. So essentially they were like, we'd love to have you at this watch party, blah, 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 but they just said it was like a watch party for the State of Union address, blah, 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 whatever it's called. So I'm not super political on this platform for one reason.
I'm going to skip over this next part. She just talks about work content and stuff.
Is when Biden, which is what this original creator was talking about, was when Biden was like, yo, if TikTok is going to get banned, I would totally sign on that. Hard stop, right? I was like, oh, no, absolutely not. After Biden has used TikTok to campaign certain things recently anyway, so I was like, you're full of crap. So I don't go, right? And I just kind of leave it unread. And then right at that time too, the agency was like, here's all the concept briefs of your posting. And so that's something that we do as influencers. When we have brand deals and we have sponsorships, we have these things called concept briefs. And it's all these approved talking points that we can make videos about afterwards. I didn't know that posting was asked. It wasn't asked in the original invite. Felt really gross about it. So I was like, oh, is there a budget for this? This has to be wildly talked about with my team. We're not really going through this right now, an hour before the fucking event. This is crazy. So they're like, no, we don't have a posting requirement. We just really encourage everyone to do that. So then I've been getting emails since the event to post on one of these talking points. Haven't answered any of them. So on all platforms that I have, TikTok and Instagram and all these things, right? I have about a little bit over 400K followers. Pretty small in the grand scheme of public figures that you all know today. So if you think about my size of following, I was invited to this to basically boost Joe Biden and his voice. Think about the people that you look up to that are high public figures that all of a sudden get into political activism. Think about if it's actually authentic or not, or if they're getting things out of it, they're being celebrated to do that, they're being paid to do that, right? Think about that.
So we had the famous moment. It was the 2016 campaign when Casey Neistat, who is the godfather of the modern vlog, endorsing Hillary Clinton. And he went on later to say he regretted doing it. And I can only assume it's paid marketing. Agencies say, we want you to advertise this message and we will pay you a lot of money. So I do think it's fascinating. As for the concept briefs thing, I'm unfamiliar with that. I've been working in this industry I've been in the internet for a long time, working with social media for 15 years. and producing content and sponsored stuff for 13 years. And I've not heard that phrase concept brief, I suppose. I've gone to like brand meetings where we talk about like content that could be made. I was never referred to that way. I don't know.
I've heard it before, but only for like, here is a specific like water bottle you're promoting, and here are the things you should point out about.
Yeah,
it.
but we get sponsored spots, and we're just told like no one's ever said here's your concept brief to me. They say like we have content we want made, and here's what it is. So I understand what she's saying. I don't know. I think it's probably semantics. We get told things like, here are 5 things we think are great about the product. Put it in your own words is usually what we're told. So I think that's basically what you're referring to. And maybe, I don't know, hers is more of an official mainstream like ad agency stuff. So that's why they use the term I'm not familiar with. But there it is for you, ladies and gentlemen. 400,000 followers. I wonder what the budget was. I wonder how much she was offering. She didn't say, did she? I don't think she mentioned how much money they were offering her. This is the secret, though. When she mentions that, think of the higher profile people and what they're paid to, I don't think, or whether it's authentic or not, I don't think they're paid, actually. When celebrities say stuff like, you got to vote for Biden, it's more so they want to get invited to the party. When someone has like 400K followers, that's the real target. Because in the event that any one of them talks like this, irrelevant. This is one person with 400K followers. Sure, fine, but it won't go viral. You choose one guy with 1 billion followers, you know, like 30 million followers. And if they decide they don't like you and they go on and go, yo, this dude's trying to pay me to endorse him, screw that guy, backfire. You find 70 influencers that have a couple 100K, a couple million. I mean, look, she got 400K. There were 70 influencers. They're targeting about 30 million. And when she comes out and says that was me, how many people actually know or care? This video from Libs of TikTok has 171,000 views. So that's the point. You want a shotgun blast spread out to minimize backlash and maximize reach. Welcome to politics, I guess.
They gave all the YouTubers an attitude for showing up to the White House. I think even you were there. Remember when Trump invited the YouTubers and social media people to the White House? And
I don't think it was YouTubers.
Oh, wasn't? I thought it was a lot of YouTubers.
So it was a lot of just personalities who were invited to go to the social media summit. I don't think there were a lot of YouTubers. But Biden probably invited YouTubers. I went because I was friends with Bill Ottman, who was CEO of Minds.com.
Right.
And Minds was invited to participate in the social media conference.
And then I just think it's funny how much grief everyone got from that. And now this stuff like this is happening. And they're like, on the left, they want this. They're like,
Bill,
they should be paid. Harry Sisson should be paid. All these people, the Krasensteins, I don't know what they're up to, but
Biden's constantly pulling in influencers. I mean, this is a big part of his youth outreach. I mean, let's not forget, I cannot remember the guy's name, but he did this video that went viral. He was saying a day in life of someone who works at the White House. It was when Jen Psaki was still there. The right hated it, the left loved it. They got tons of exposure for their Pride celebration, but again, the right was like, why do you have topless trans people on the lawn?
I forgot about that.
You know, I mean, I don't know how effective influencer marketing really is for the Biden campaign, except they think they just push enough, the good will outweigh the bad. They'll talk to enough people. And I'm not an expert in the field. I can't say on the numbers like what that's doing for them. I just know that a lot of the time when we see these sort of weird cultural cracks in the Biden administration, it's often delivered to us through influencers who they have invited to events. I mean, remember they invited Dylan Mulvaney to the White House to talk about, Trans Day of Visibility or
women's
something.
issues.
I think it's all backfiring on him. I mean, you look at the polls, Gen Z is for Trump. I think it's the economy, stupid. So you can play these games all day and night and get your influencers, and sure, you'll find weird culty young people who are, you know what I think? I think there's a lot of young people who are going online. I mean, look at this. She says, I don't really get political. Her channel is about the frustrations of corporate America. And then she's like basically Biden bad is the general thesis here. Mm-hmm. I think that you might find there are going to be influencers who say things like, yeah, I totally agree with that. And then as soon as they hang up their phone, turn the camera off or whatever, they go, no way, I'm voting Trump. I'll tell you this. One of the most offensive things that I've heard quite a bit is that there are prominent celebrities who are anti-Trump who are privately bragging about voting for him. It's for real. And it's not my place to name these individuals because I have sources who are insistent on not exposing who these individuals are, which I'm not a fan of, but I have to respect the privacy of the individuals who are revealing the information and, and keep them out of harm's way. But There are people who are celebrities in Hollywood who hit me up and they'll say things like, hey, this dude is a huge Trump supporter. And then I'm like, but he's going on shows and TV saying Trump is bad. And they're like, oh yeah, but he wants the money. He wants the tax cuts. He wants Trump, like,
it's all about reputation for them.
Yep.
And I think it depends on what the influencer or the person is doing. Like I remember there was a sleep consultant, like Mommy Lifestyle, whatever. Her Instagram account was taking Kara, like the woman's name, babies. And I knew people I went to high school with who paid for her like sleep training manual or something like that. And then it came out that her family had donated, like she and her husband had been contributing to Trump's campaign, and there was an effort to boycott her.
Wow.
This was, I think, during 2020. And I don't even know if she ever addressed it, but it was interesting. That's like, she's giving you legitimate information that's completely non-political. I mean, I guess children in some ways are political, but like, this is how you help your child learn to get into the rhythm of sleeping.
Right.
And you want to boycott her, not because you don't like her product, not because you think she promotes anything dangerous, but because she privately, without mentioning it on her platform, donated to Trump.
Political opinions immediately invalidated anything that person has said before.
Right. It's so crazy that it went that level. Like if she was promoting some sort of political agenda, I could get it, but this is completely irrelevant to the thing you're upset about, the thing that
They're like, burn her.
the product you're buying from her.
Crazy.
Remember when Mark Zuckerberg had barbecue sauce on his shelf? I question that. I don't question someone's political opinions. I'm like, if there's like someone who, I'm thinking about this woman who's talking about taking care of babies or whatever it is, and then you passively find out there's like a Trump hat in the background, and they're like, oh, everything she's ever done is called into question. I'm like, well, the Trump hat I get. It's the barbecue sauce on the shelf I don't get.
Well, that just is deranged, whereas this is like...
What is wrong with this man?
It was just weird. Like for a while after that, Brett Dasovich, who's on Pop Culture Crisis, I would like bring him my Sweet Baby Ray's like barbecue packages. It's like, for you, my friend.
Okay, like to be honest, like maybe he went grocery shopping and he
just put it on his bookshelf?
Right, he put it on his bookshelf for some reason.
What? You think his bookshelf is so close to his kitchen that he got confused? Like, did he short circuit? I don't buy this at all. But again,
okay, see, that sparks debate. Like someone having a Trump hat, I'd just be like, oh. Someone having a Biden hat, to go, oh.
Yeah.
Look, I get that. I understand the motivations and ideas behind those things. If I'm watching a guy and he's like, here's how you apply like vinyl flooring, and then he's like, it's like playing elevator music as he's like, take the vinyl flooring piece and click it in before pressing it down. And he's wearing a Biden shirt. I'd be like, well, yeah, I get it. I don't care. I mean, he's helping me put my floor together.
Right.
But man, people.
But he probably put it together wrong and biasly because he voted for Biden. You know,
That actually-
like, that's the equivalent of what they said about this like girl who's giving you parenting advice. Like, well, probably she's going to make your child a white supremacist because she privately supports Trump.
Here's
I think this is
no, go ahead.
I mean, I think this is obviously an investment in two ideas. One, the Democrats have now become the party that believes that polling might not work. So, like, let's rewind 2012. Do you remember the term poll bias? The Republicans had this entire cottage industry that basically tried to, quote, unskew the polls. There was a guy called the unskewthepolls.com thing. This is how.
No, I don't know.
This is the sort of
12 years ago.
12 years ago.
Yeah.
This is the extreme end of why Romney HQ thought they would win the election. That basically the polls are fake. And where there's poll bias against Republicans, and so if there's a poll that says that Obama's up 2, the Republicans are really up 4, or something like this. That because people were being canceled even back then for being Republicans, or something like that.
They're saying the poll bias was keeping Mitt Romney down.
Right, yeah. And then in 2016, after the 2012 was basically the polling was right, more or less. The Democrats, uber believed that they would hold the White House, and the Republicans, even the elite Republicans didn't believe that Trump would win, or particularly the elite Republicans, I should state. Trump won, and this cycle kind of repeated, assuming that the Republicans were understated in both the polls. In 2020, Trump was understated in both the polls. It was meaningful enough in 2016 that he became the president. Fast forward, 2024. The Democrats, the shoe is totally on the other foot. Trump is in his strongest polling position that he has been since a politician. I mean, it's unbelievable. His name recognition has never been higher. And you would think that Americans would have had their minds made up one way or the other on Mr. Trump. Not so. He is at the highest point. He's at the apex of his polling career. It's subtle. These are thousands of votes in small states, but he's in the whip position, in command post, politically speaking. Accordingly, the Democrats have to invest in another idea, the power of advertising. We don't know if any of this stuff is going to work. But it doesn't mean that people have to vote for Biden. They just have to merely convince people to stay home. And I think that's what you're seeing with these sort of subtle entreaties. Additionally, Biden's own conception of young people is like everybody under 65 or 55 or 40.
Yeah.
I mean, he really has no idea. I mean, boomers, baby boomers themselves still treat millennials as if they are like 18. I don't know how old this particular influencer, but if she's Gen Z, I believe she's like 22, 23. It's utterly pedantic. And in some ways, influencers often fall into this trap themselves. I mean, there's a bit of a verbal tick that she said, that the State of the Union address or whatever, like her lack of confidence.
Right.
She actually got it right. Like, why should you just say the State of the Union address? And I think it creates this complex where they think they can profit.
This seems
She's
like
spilling the tea and
it's-
leaving them on red. All the Gen Z slang.
and it's more transparent advertising. Whereas like when Obama was doing it, he was adopting this new tech, and it seemed like genuine to everyone because look, he's
No, we're in
doing
a
all this
much more
stuff.
nihilistic, cynical age.
Yeah, totally. No one's buying it like they were back then.
I mean, the Obama campaign slogan was
Change?
was forward,
Hope?
forward in 2012, hope and change in 2008, and then when everything wasn't so great in that first term, it was just like, well, forward, implying
Forget that.
and then
This is an interesting concept you brought up, though, that boomers still treat millennials like they're 18.
yes,
And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously not every single boomer, but many of them. And there was a meme for a while where millennials were like, boomers, we're 40. We're 40 years old. But for some reason, the narrative coming out of a lot of these old school like media people who still have control of the reins while they do was that like, why are millennials like this or like that? And the response from millennials were like, I'm 38 years old. I don't know why you're talking to me like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, and if they are like this or that, I'm largely thinking it's because we have a boomer class that said you're all children, and so we expect you to act that way. So they rose to the occasion and acted like children and didn't take on responsibilities and don't want to have families and want to be in sort of perpetual young adulthood, adolescence for a long time. I mean, maybe boomers should take some responsibility for some of our cultural woes here.
it's pretty wild. You know, for the longest time, millennials were, I just generally the concept that the boomers, for whatever reason, view themselves as adults. And one of the things that's really fascinating to me is whenever I find myself in a situation with someone who's older, they say, you're very young. And I'm like, I am 38. Like, I am, like, quite literally life expectancy in this country is 73 for males. So, you know, when I jokingly say I'm halfway there, it's like only a half joke. And then I have older people, boomers, say, oh, get out of here. You're a young man and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm 38, dude. I'm not young.
Yeah,
They're
but
saying
if
that to
you're-
convince themselves.
Right, I was
otherwise.
going to say,
Yeah.
if you're not young, then they are very, very
self-justifying
old.
for their power.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're going to run a gerontocratic society, you have to have this idea like, well, they'll get their turn. But
So what do you call it? Geriocratic?
Gerontocratic.
Gerontocratic?
Gerontocracy.
Gerontocracy.
Rule by the old, so the conjugation would be gerontocratic.
This is what we currently have going on. It's become a joke where there's a meme where it's an old lady and she says something like, when I was your age, we used to listen to 8-track. And then the young woman goes, that's nice, Grandma. Let me get you to the Senate. Like, it is, yeah, like, you know, we got putting in the wheelchair. Okay. There was one joke where it's like, I can't remember which comedian did this, but he was like, you know, my grandfather's getting on in his life and his memory's not so good. We find him struggling to walk and he's not using a wheelchair. So we think it's time to put him in Congress. And so, but for real, like why is this happening? That in the United States, we have this stunted generational world. Look, we talk about how I've jokingly said that time stopped in the 90s or the 90s were the last decade. After the 90s, everything started to bleed into one and boomers have maintained, and I'm not ragging on the entirety of the boomer generation, but many baby boomers in positions of power maintained that they are adults and millennials are children. And now we are quite literally experiencing, very much so, many millennials who act like children, who talk about, you know, they're in their 30s. And it's like Seth Rogen. I mean, he's a man-child. I'm not trying to be a dick to him, but he is. He's like, Saturday morning, I'm going to sleep in all day. And what's her face? And he's Gen X.
Chelsea Handler.
Chelsea Handler.
Yeah.
Permanent children who have been like, there is no responsibility that I should have to engage in. I accept nothing. Look, as the saying goes, society grows great when, I believe the saying was when old men plant trees, but we'll say old people because we're very progressive, plant trees whose shade they know they will never sit beneath. But we're quite literally at the point where people like Seth Rogen, people who are in their early to late to mid 40s now, Gen X and older millennials are quite literally saying, don't look at me. I'm going to party until the sun comes down. What does that mean for the future of this country?
It's deforming for everybody. I mean, this is not normal. I mean, the man is too old for this office.
Joe Biden.
I think so.
Oh,
yeah.
come on. Look, Dianne Feinstein didn't even know she was hospitalized. She was like, what do you mean? I've been here the whole time. And they're like, ma'am, you were in the hospital. How long was she in the hospital for? 3 months or something?
No, longer.
It was longer than 3
She was in
months?
hospital,
Well, she hospital and then she did this long rehab and stuff.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
She also, her team put out a statement saying she is going to resign, and then later was like, I didn't say that to a reporter. And they had to be like, no, yes, you did.
I got to be honest. Maybe it's that boomers are right and millennials are children. I'm
Well, I mean, yes, but boomers have original sin. They're the ones who did it first. So, I mean, we might be bearing the symptoms of this.
But you mean
they
that-
cast the first stone?
that millennials helped.
I mean, there's not a conspiracy, but like the reality is, I think we have a leadership class. Mr. Biden is an affluent individual. Feinstein was a multimillionaire, I believe. And the reality is, it's not like people are going to have these strokes or die. This stuff all happens, but they can keep older, wealthier Americans in general alive and kicking for like 30 years longer than they used to be able
But are you saying that boomers refusing to hand over the reins of society resulted in stunted millennials?
Yes, absolutely. There's been no changing of the guard. I mean, go back to 2008 when Mr. Biden was selected as vice president. One of the qualifications that was cited was that, there's no way Biden will run for president in 2016. He ran for president in 2020.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
but he didn't run in 2016.
But no,
fair
hold on.
enough. Touche.
What's stopping millennials from rising to the occasion?
I think they're
Nothing, but
refusing. I think they refuse to do it.
Well, first of all, the older generations have most of the wealth and most of the name recognition. I mean, because they had these positions of power. There's been no change of the guard. I mean, this is totally ahistorical. In 1960, Kennedy's elected president. Kennedy runs against Nixon. Everybody forgets Nixon and Kennedy are the same age, even though Nixon looked a lot more haggard than the sort of model aesthetics of Kennedy, right? And it was a clear move, right? Like this is the first generation that had served in the infantry in World War II, right? Like Eisenhower, his predecessor, had been a general. JFK had been a soldier. It proceeded from there. Kennedy and Reagan were the same age, right? Reagan looked a lot older because he became the president 20 years later. HW was the last of that generation. 30 years. Big generation, long period of time. HW to Clinton. That's the beginning of the boomers. Clinton is the great sort of center-left boomer president, and George W. Bush is the great sort of center-right boomer president. Then it transferred to Obama, who is technically boomer, but kind of codes Gen X. It's controversial. There should have been a handoff then. What do we do then? We actually go back 15 years. Hillary Clinton is born in 1947. Trump, for all of there's good said about him, is 1946.
He's a silent generation, right?
He's
late boomer?
He's boomer.
Early boomer.
George W. This is like weird knowledge, but George W. Bush, Clinton, and Trump are all born within 60 days of each other in the summer of 1946.
Obama's
What
a
a
boomer.
fun statistic to know.
Obama's
That's
a
a good
boomer.
Obama is technically a boomer,
But he pretends he's not.
but I feel like he codes Gen X.
Right.
He's hip.
Yeah.
He's cool. He has
likes
younger
Kendrick
children.
Lamar. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
right.
and his kids are younger. I think
like
that's
for
one of the
instance,
things.
like take another, David Duchovny, the X-Files actor.
course.
Does he seem more boomer or Gen X?
Well, I watched Twin Peaks, so I know he's older.
Me too.
Okay,
Yeah.
but I feel like he feels a little
Yeah.
bit Gen
X-y.
It's sort of BS-y. But like my point is, like the early 60 birthday people can often code that way, as opposed to the
Right.
core boomer people are generally people who have been born in the 1950s.
What year was Trump born?
1946.
So he's actually he's a boomer.
They're all three, Bush, Clinton, and Trump are boomers.
Yeah, Trump
and
is a
Biden
boomer.
was born in 42. He's silent generation.
And they were all born in the same
40,
hospital.
46 is the first year of boomer. And,
You had me
and
fooled for
I
a
know,
second.
sorry.
the generations do vary depending on what source you're using.
Right.
I just Googled it. The first thing that comes up is 1946 is baby boomer.
I don't think Trump's actually all that boomer in his approach. He's actually not that optimistic and not that supportive of the decisions made in this country for the last 50 years. That's why his tone is super different than Bush or Clinton's. His tone is different than Mitt Romney's. Like it's a fundamental, like, yeah, you know, like we did globalization and that was all very good. Trump is even as far back as 1988 when he was first running for president, where he first flirting with running for president. You can go back to see the Oprah Winfrey show. I think it's 87, 88. Trump, this is the Reagan years. I mean, like people really liked Reagan, right? He won 49 states. Like he's saying, like, actually the Japanese are crushing us. Everything's kind of bad. We shouldn't really be offshoring all these jobs. Like, this is the 45-year-old Trump.
You know, I'm younger than a lot of people who've actually experienced all this stuff, or I'm literally younger than the people who experienced Reagan and all that. But it actually sounds to me like the only reason Reagan won is because Carter was because of Carter, and the real reason was because of interest rates. It was Brew. What were they at, like 20% or whatever?
It was very high.
Yeah, it was very, very high.
Very high. Yeah, higher than today. Yeah.
So you look. The Federal Reserve could decide who they want to be president by just cranking up the interest rates and spiking the incumbent.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably, but it's usually this sort of like super judicial tango between the Fed chair and the president.
Right.
I mean, there is the like left-wing conspiracy is that I believe it was Don Regan, the Treasury Secretary, and Ronald Reagan hauled Paul Volcker in and like sort of intimidated him. And of course, eventually they got rid of Volcker and replaced him with Greenspan, who was the low interest rate guy.
Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? I love this. All of our presidents are boomers, and now they're definitely not letting anyone through.
Yeah.
Do we have
Biden's silent generation? The only way to beat
silent
the only way to
He's
beat the
really
boomers
taking
is
us
to go older.
But do
We
we
need to
have
find someone even older.
Do we
than Biden.
have a class or on either side of the aisle of Gen X politicians? I mean, we do have some millennial, but
the reality,
if all of the boomers are holding all of the spots in power, do we even have anyone to replace them? Are there that many options?
Even cadres. I mean, with I think you're getting. Forgive me if I'm misinterpreting your question. The result of this gerontocracy is that there aren't as many people that have the sort of mid-high ranking jobs and have the normal pedigrees to take people on.
Right.
So I think that's kind of what you're getting. Even Biden's cabinet is strangely constructed. So Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, I believe is a millennial. You can search it. And Anthony Blinken, I think, or he's very late Gen X.
Jake Sullivan's got to be Gen X.
I think he might be
He's Gen X.
what
Sullivan
year?
is Gen
What year?
76.
Okay, and Blinken I think is Gen X.
Yeah, Sullivan's 47.
Okay, he looks. Okay, but Blinken is definitely Gen X. I'm pretty sure. You could argue. They had effective chaperones in their roles. So Susan Rice was the previous national security advisor. Older, also had a West Wing.
No,
office.
Blinken's a boomer.
How old?
61.
That's the part of the weird Gen X coding. You're just gonna have to
They're
go.
pretending they're not.
You're gonna have to go with my framework.
Wait,
No,
so-
He was.
He's a boomer. He's literally boomer is 46 to 64. But my argument essentially was that I don't get mired in this, but like the early 60s birthdays have this sort of strange. Same thing with 70.
Yeah, he was born in
82.
62.
Yeah,
64 is the
same age as Obama.
It's like you get the millennial Zoomer lunch right now.
Precisely.
that
What
people
is
find.
1997? It's technically millennial, but it could pass as Zoomer. Or 1996, technically millennial, could pass as Zoomer, in my opinion. It all depends how you code.
Yeah.
Certain people want to code older. Certain people want to code younger. It's complex.
Yeah, like Seamus Coughlin, for instance, might as well be silent generation.
But I am a Zoomer because I was born in '95.
No, it's millennial.
I know. I'm
Oh,
just
sorry.
pretending like I'm in.
I'm taking this too seriously, I think.
Well, okay. So what's Pete Buttigieg? Is he our only?
He's a millennial.
Yeah.
So he's our only millennial cabinet member.
AOC.
AOC.
Oh, right.
Cabinet member.
Cabinet member.
AOC 's not a
Cabinet member. Are you talking about cabinet members and maybe?
Well, you were talking about the
Buttigieg?
cabinet member,
Yeah,
so I'm building up to that.
Buttigieg is definitely the only millennial cabinet member.
But I think there's a
AOC is not in the cabinet. Wait.
actually this would be an interesting list. Maybe we could produce it, and maybe it already exists. A list of Congress showing a graph percentage of generations in Congress.
The median age of Congress would be, I think, in the low 60s.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Which is historically would have been in the 40s or 30s.
You know, it's
until
fascinating.
Complex. I mean, the Civil War, people just died. So I mean, I think
It's not just politics. I read a meme and it said that during the Apollo missions, the people working in Houston were on average like 25, 26 years old, and today they're like 48.
Yeah, we don't go to the moon anymore.
But that's so weird. But it's not just that. It's working in aerospace and NASA.
It's not all bad, but I think there's just effectively a real price to be paid for not taking the talents of people in their physical prime 25 to 40 or something like that, and just saying like you're still a child. It's bad for everybody.
Everything seems delayed. Like everyone's having kids later. Literally everything's delayed, and then lockdowns stopped it. So
Maybe
stop on top of the delay.
But I wonder.
Lockdown is the most boomer thing.
I wonder.
I mean, it's boomer protection.
Extremely
Stay in your living
color-coded.
room.
But I wonder if it's because of the economic issions.
That for sure.
2008 stops for a few years. Stops everything for a few years.
Yes.
2020 stops everything for a few years.
Yes. Yeah, the younger generation inherited just trash, which definitely accelerated the non-acceleration of their lives.
Yeah,
Well, it's also like-
but bad things have happened throughout history. What
Yeah.
is-
That's
what is
true,
what
too.
is new about this
That's
is
true.
generally okay. There are great baby boomers, but I think this is clearly a failure.
Oh, they made Star Trek: The Next Generation. Baby boomers are awesome.
Yeah, millions of people. They did some cool stuff. But like, but I think what is different about this situation is that you have an overclass that isn't going away. Like George W.
Right.
Bush, the worst president in American history, and
George W. Bush.
in
I
my
don't know about
opinion,
that.
he's the worst president in American history.
Not
don't know,
Woodrow
I-
Wilson.
Yeah.
If the portfolio, if the standard is the country and he inherited, Mr. President, here's the file of the United States of America in 2001 versus the file that he handed Barack Obama in 2009. I'm not aware of a president. Like, look, a war in Europe was going to happen. Like whether or not the U.S. was getting involved is a debate. But I don't think the country in 1920 was radically worse off than it had been from 1912. And of course, the economy boomed after
we
Wilson
got
left office.
the creation of Federal Reserve.
Patriot Act.
Well, no, if Woodrow
Okay, we
Wilson.
gotta
Oh, I'm
pick our-
talking about
we gotta
Bush.
pick our lane here, but
Not
yeah.
Bush. Yeah, sorry.
No, we can debate all that. I mean, but I'm just saying, like I think it's almost an above ideological statement to say that George W. Bush did a really, really bad job. Even if you're a deep conservative, I think you had to see.
Yeah, but I
Trump
mean-
thinks that. I mean,
Oh, I don't like Bush. I don't even
Yeah.
want to defend him, but I also don't like Wilson.
my point is though.
I mean,
we still have to
Buchanan?
we still have to listen to what okay, if you thought Wilson was the worst president,
Buchanan.
James, I think there was a whole succession of presidents in the 1850s that were quite bad, but the Civil War might have been inevitable. I don't think the Iraq War was inevitable. I don't.
I
think
agree. Oh, yeah,
I think it was
absolutely.
an elective war of choice.
Yes. Yep.
So versus you could make the argument without Buchanan, the Civil War would have happened. Whether it happened earlier or later, like it was moving. Versus it is not clear to me that any other president would have decided to electively go into Iraq.
Yeah, fair point. Fair point.
Yeah. So, but the whole point is though, even if you thought Wilson was the worst president in American history, he had the decency to die in 1924. Versus we still have to hear what George W. Bush thinks about Ukraine,
Yeah.
which he can't even keep
And then
track.
we have to watch him paint on Kimmel.
Remember, he can't even.
Hey,
he
he's
can't
an
even,
artist now.
No. That Freudian slip when he said launching an unjust war in Iraq.
Oh.
Well, I'm saying that he can't even. We have
Yeah.
to listen to this alleged wise man, and meanwhile he can't even keep track of which country he wants to invade.
Democrats view him favorably now.
That's what's so weird to me is the Uniparty like gave him some type of redemption arc. Whereas
He is
they
Uniparty.
won't do that for Trump in 20 years.
He
10 years.
was
You
like
think they
seen
would?
sitting with Ellen DeGeneres at a baseball game. And
Oh, he's done all of it.
Although who knows?
Or they always
we
picture
could be
him
sitting in the 2030s. We're like, man, Tucker Carlson's the worst president ever. Donald Trump looks like.
Let's jump to this next story. This is big news. Following what we were just talking about with TikTok, the Post Millennial reports Rumble makes offer to buy and operate TikTok in the U.S. Quote, in the event that ByteDance divests its ownership in TikTok, Rumble stands ready to join a consortium with other parties seeking to acquire and operate TikTok inside the United States. That's the solution. What should happen right now is that all TikTokers should be calling for Rumble to acquire and operate TikTok. It would save the platform. It would help fix a lot of the platform's problems. It would prevent the platform from being shut down, most importantly. And with the unanimous approval from which committee was it? That was it was like unanimously approved in committee.
The House
Intelligence Committee?
Commerce Committee.
Commerce.
Yeah, the committee.
Energy and Commerce, yeah.
Right, unanimously approved this bill, which would force TikTok to divest from their Chinese investors, become an American company. The interesting thing is, so this bill they're proposing, I was wrong the other day when we were talking about how it would give the president the power to declare a website or app a foreign adversary. I was under the impression it was specifically TikTok. That appears not to be the case. The bill gives the president the authority to declare an adversary under certain criteria. If a website, app, operator, or otherwise is being run or is associated with an adversary to the United States, then they can activate severance and seize control or shut it down. That is very, very bad. And we should not support this. I think it's important that everybody reads through it. Thomas Massey tweeted about it because it would shut down VPNs. It would shut down Telegram. It wouldn't just shut down TikTok. It would shut down any chance you have of speaking freely outside the control of the U.S. government. It would effectively put a glass dome over the United States in terms of your communication abilities, which is quite literally what we're trying to avoid when we're critical of TikTok. Is TikTok has a Chinese interest doming over all of those people on TikTok, and we want a free and open internet. However, I do believe that TikTok operating under Rumble would solve my biggest concern, which is the egregious censorship on the platform. TikTok is the worst platform for censorship that we've experienced. So I'm for this, but I'm wondering what you guys would think will happen with TikTok. Do you think they're gonna actually ban it? Do you think TikTok will be forced to divest or what?
I think TikTok's gonna go screaming to the end. They don't think they're gonna give up until they absolutely have to. And I don't know what the fate of this bill is really gonna be. I think there has been a really fair level of criticism. I obviously, I've said it before on the show that I think TikTok has a negative effect on American teenagers, and I think ultimately it does support Chinese interests. The thing that I liked about this bill, I don't like the present thing. I do like that part of it is if they are going to stop operating in the U.S., they do have to give all of the content to all the creators. And so that would make a transition to a TikTok Rumble hybrid easier. And that thing that TikTok is dangling over people right now is that there are so many, the influencer sphere is so big and it really does make a lot of money. Also, businesses will sort of blow up. Books will suddenly become famous even though they've been out for 5 years. It has a huge impact on culture and commerce right now. And so if you were to say you're not going to lose your livelihood, because that's what TikTok is saying, it will ruin your life. You won't be able to make money. It's not only taking away the fun, but it's taking away the economic freedom that we gave you by becoming, active on this platform. That would be interesting. I just think that I don't think this bill will go through, and I think the next ban that comes up, if it's better and it does go through, TikTok's going to fight. They're not going to want to go to Rumble.
How do they
till the end.
define adversary? Do you know? Have you?
It's a technical term that's defined by the State Department. Let me see if I can.
I wonder, is it specifically the Chinese Communist Party, which I doubt?
No, it's big. There's like a whole list.
MAGA extremists.
Does it say how they do it in the bill? Because it's
define adversary in the bill.
The term is
ESP, my man.
Sorry, my apologies. The term is generally set in practice by the national security strategy, and
then
so
they just use that.
I
the
believe,
bill,
but
the bill wouldn't define it.
That's norm and convention.
Right.
There's nothing that can't stop a member of Congress just writing "this guy's an adversary" in a bill, and if it gets enough votes, that becomes the law.
Or just using certain types of phrases as a way to define adversary. As
Biden's national security strategy stopped short of calling
MAGA extremists.
stopped short of calling China an enemy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think it's maybe a competitor is the term, or something maybe a little bit frostier than that.
Okay.
It reminds me,
but it's an upgrade from like 2013, where it was just like openly like a business partner.
Right.
It reminds me of when all the states were banning TikTok and they were each coming out with their own language, and every ban that was issued by a governor got more and more refined, in my opinion, or a lot of them did, because you saw they would be headed as like state enacts TikTok ban. You can't use TikTok on government-owned devices, government-owned Wi-Fi, and it kept expanding. But also some of the states banned other apps that are owned by companies based in Beijing, which is the whole idea that, companies that operate in China are obligated to submit user data to the Communist Party.
It's an idea for you.
That's the threshold they're building off of. So they would also bring up WhatsApp. Like you can't use certain states. You can't use WhatsApp on government Wi-Fi or government-owned devices. And again, it's the idea that like these
entities.
Right. These entities have broad reaching terms of service. They're able to use all kinds of, it's similarly, Trump is right when he points out that, in some ways this would benefit Facebook, which in its terms of service, if you open Facebook on your browser, it can see everything else on every other tab. Right. And that's the concern they have with TikTok.
I think two things are going on here on the Republican side. One, there is the longstanding view, and apologies if you guys use TikTok at all, but I don't.
I've been banned.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Not the right audience for that. Then.
Are you a TikTok fan?
I won't put it on my phone.
We got banned arbitrarily for citing statistics.
Okay.
Not even offensive ones. It was depression among women.
I see.
And someone read a stat that the study found that women who are in the workplace have higher rates of depression, and permabanned instantly.
What year is this?
This was last year, I think.
I think in general, conservatives look at it two different ways. One, the medium is not particularly high IQ. In fact, like literally just seems like if you watch enough videos, it's just going to melt your brain. But two, there has been a development, I feel like, in the last 6 to 12 months where there's such a lack or paucity of Republicans on the platform that the ones who do go on do very well. And I think someone like Ramaswamy, the candidate, called for a ban, and then I think he started going on, and he's obviously very well spoken, and kind of did well. And he's like, well, maybe we should just compete.
Dances,
yeah. So I think that's kind of going on. Also, I think it's this sort of weird situation where it's not that weird. Neither party trusts the other with the power of the state. So if the Republicans were convinced that Congressman Gallagher, who's retiring, or like Marco Rubio was going to be the one adjudicating, who's an adversary, or like who gets banned based on China ties. Okay. But if the Democrats win, they're obviously the prospect of them stretching an interpretation here to make it arbitrary, as you just said, seems like not only likely, but certain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you ban TikTok, or what would that look like for you?
I would have said yes a year ago. At this point, I mean, look, if they're serious, I mean, that guy, the TikTok CEO who kept saying, remember he had that exchange with, I believe it was Cotton or somebody, he kept indicating that he's Singaporean. He's not actually Chinese.
Right. Yeah.
I'm Singaporean. Right? I think it was Cotton.
That's the big difference. As someone who went to high school in Singapore, it's different.
It is different. It's
Probably a lot
different.
different.
But obviously,
Wait, they're different places? I didn't realize that the
there's different parts of.
Well, he's Singaporean, but
Singapore-
ByteDance still
look,
is based in
guys,
Beijing.
Right.
Singapore is like the Rhode Island of countries. Okay.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a solipsism by him. He represents a Chinese firm, and he just kept indicating. It'd be a little bit like, if you were born in a different country and just really roping on that,
Well,
even though you.
Well, I'll give you an example of the purpose of this assumptive language. When I was in Venezuela, I'm an American. I know what happens to Americans.
When were you in Venezuela?
10 years ago, 11 years ago.
So was it before Maduro or Chavez?
No, it was during Maduro. Yeah,
So
yeah.
2014.
And it was large protests from the middle class because they're being gutted and destroyed.
Right.
And I'm with the film crew for Vice, and a guy comes up to me and he goes, "Where are you from?" And he's pissed. And I know exactly what comes next. And I go, Vice
Singapore.
Magazine. And he goes, no, what country? And I was like, Vice Magazine is a Canadian magazine. And he was like, and then he nods and he walks off.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't actually answer his question. When he said, "Where are you from?" I was like, Vice Magazine.
Right.
As if the question was what outlet. When I know what he meant. And you have to keep, that you're legally required to have your passport on you at all times if you're a foreigner.
You
And
should
so
have
then
just
we
done
said,
the Biden thing and talk about how your car.
no,
makes
when he
noise.
said which country, instead of answering the question, I said Vice Magazine is a Canadian magazine, which was not the question he asked, but he assumed then I must be Canadian.
Yeah,
That's the point of saying I'm from Singapore.
Right.
We get it. We know. We're asking who you are representing.
Right.
Oh, it's very clever. I mean, you survived, so I mean, it worked, and this guy is still in the arena. I mean, if they are serious, I think this is just optically, in my personal opinion, a great deal for them. Everybody knows Rumble is right aligned. If they're serious about operating the U.S. and they want to show that they're divested from, day in day out of control by Beijing, why not take this offer?
I mean, that's kind of wild to say that Rumble is right aligned. To be honest, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I think functionally they are. They're obviously filling a gap in the marketplace.
But I think the challenge we are facing right now is that the right is just a bunch of centrists.
What is the right? Is us?
The right is centrism, and the left is far left extremism, as exemplified by Rumble will not ban far leftists. They will not do it. They will allow the left and the right to have their conversations. The left will absolutely ban anyone on the right. Consistently in the culture war, the right says, "Now slow down there. Let's be fair to each other," and the left just says, "Destroy them."
One of the most telltale signs of this whole thing, I feel like you see it a little less now because it's just so ridiculous. But a couple of years ago, when you had a lot of I'll just use this term again, left-aligned thinkers or speakers or public personalities putting the word free speech in sneer quotes, right? It was literally like the concept is literally the First Amendment of the United States. But the idea of free speech being a novel or right-wing concept. I think that's the environment in which Rumble came into being.
Free speech means hate speech.
Right.
people.
I mean, this is an
left
old
aligned.
debate, but the idea that the open forum in the digital era. Even the terms. I will ban it from my magazine. Like the words misinformation or disinformation. Like, are we all adults or not? Right?
You don't use those words, you're saying?
No.
Nice.
No. It's just like, if we want to have some insane, very far left person write something and it's actually very well done, they can, I'm not going to say this is misinformation. The reader can make up their own mind.
Right. The writers are allowed to use it, you're saying? Or
I won't allow it.
Right.
I won't allow
because it's been so overused and means nothing anymore.
I do believe human beings lie
course.
or make arguments that are fraudulent or sententious, but I think it is a lot better to litigate that and debate it and have an open discussion than to just say this is misinformation trademark. It's an un-American.
Have you
concept.
rejected other modern style guide concepts as an editor of a magazine?
There's
so many.
We're fairly straight. Oh yeah,
capital B for black. You know,
no, we don't use that. We don't
like
use
the New
that.
York Times.
We don't use that.
Small W for white. It's crazy.
I think the Post is still. It's very confusing.
The Post is the New York Post. You're saying
the Washington Post.
okay,
We're still
because the New York Post is, I think, lost their minds.
New York Post has lost their minds.
Yeah, like their stories have become more like BuzzFeed articles. I've noticed lately.
Yeah, totally.
That doesn't mean that it's all like that.
What era do you think that changed?
I've only noticed it recently, but I think it's been happening slowly because I remember seeing bylines in the New York Post and then going to check out their Twitter, and their Twitter pages were just like insane leftist people, but their articles weren't so left leaning, so they were sort of like objective.
Yep.
But then the objectivity started to wane, and now we're getting more articles that I would have seen as like first person essays in BuzzFeed 10 years ago. Okay. You know, like sex obsessed, weird, you know.
Oh, I see.
Modern love, but spicy.
A little more
columns.
tabloid.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
It's weird.
I see. I do think that the New York Post still sets this sort of agenda for like a lot of television.
Right.
And, it's still huge reach.
Yeah.
And it's definitely more outlaw than the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah.
And
Let's jump to the story, which I've only just recently began hearing about, and I don't have many words. From Newsweek, Candace Owens bets career on politician's wife being a man. Terrifying. Okay, here we go. Conservative commentator Candace Owens said she would bet her career that French President Emmanuel Macron's wife, Brigitte, is a man. Quote, after looking into this, I would stake my entire professional reputation on the fact that Brigitte Macron is in fact a man. Owens wrote in a Tuesday post on X, formerly Twitter, any journalist or publication that is trying to dismiss this plausibility is immediately identifiable as establishment. I have never seen anything like this in my life. The implications here are terrifying. Owens spoke in depth about the long-standing conspiracy theory during Monday's episode of her podcast, arguing that if Brigitte really wanted to debunk those claims, she could simply release photos from the first 30 years of her life. Analyzing a rare family photo of Brigitte as a baby, Owens said Brigitte was a dead ringer for her brother, and thus they were really the same person. Last year, a French court fined 2 women for promoting the conspiracy about Brigitte in a now-deleted YouTube video. In 2021, psychic Amandine Roy and self-described freelance journalist Natasha Ray claimed in a 4-hour video that the First Lady was born as a boy by the name of Jean-Michel Trogneau, which is actually the name of her brother. They also claimed that she did not give birth to their children and that her first husband never existed. Is she talking about Michelle Obama? No, because I'm not making any accusations about Michelle Obama. That's quite literally the conspiracy theory about Michelle Obama.
It's popular.
What if all world leaders' wives are actually original transgenders, and the transgender agenda was laid in place to help make this acceptable
during Women's History Month?
Exactly.
That actually there are
that
no
actually
first
makes perfect sense in the absurd world.
The thing about the Macron and his wife is like it always gets me that they met when he was classmates with her daughter and she was a teacher at his high school.
Yes.
And you want to be like, this seemed unethical and weird from the beginning.
You mean he was a teacher?
It's France.
At his high school.
Look, no one's proved it to me. I don't want to question Candace Owens' reputation or anything else, but
I looked into this as doing a lot of work. What does that mean?
I'm doing it right now. I'm doing a lot of work on my phone right now to see. These
Did she
days,
assemble a team to France? What's going on?
I thought
here?
Candace was asking for like a certain type of pick, like a pull your pants down type of pick to prove yourself. But even that wouldn't do it. Honestly,
I don't understand the point of these theories.
There's not much.
I just Google searched Brigitte Macron young, and this is what comes up. I mean,
I stand by the fact that she was his teacher is weird enough. Like
Totally
maybe
weird
there's
enough.
a gender angle, but like let's focus on what we know for sure, which is that they met when he was 15, and that just seems weird to me.
It was like a 3-year investigation from what I remember them doing too. It wasn't like it was short. Like they did it for a while. It wasn't like they just,
Who is they?
I don't know the French.
Who is
Nice.
that? Good question.
No, but like the
An
French
investigation
journalists that
into-
were investigating this. Apparently
Oh, yeah,
it was
it's
just
been
like
around for
it
a
wasn't
long
like
time.
a little thing they studied it for like years.
No, Candace
but-
is probably right. Like Trudeau.
I don't know.
Trudeau's probably Castro's son.
That
Michelle is definitely Mike.
the bar on that is so much lower. Like he does look like Fidel Castro.
Like visiting
It
the
only has to
island.
happen once.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Versus like this implies that they
So-
have like an actor
Okay.
and like a bunch of people were falsified
it's
and like
way
also
bigger.
like her first husband did die. That was like
Exactly.
a real person.
So
Does
I
she
can't
speak
sell you then
French?
on a
How was this
Biden clone.
investigated?
So if you can see Trudeau as Castro, I can't sell you on
Okay,
Biden
yeah.
being a network of clones and holograms.
Secret. What's the word I'm looking for?
Child?
Illegitimate child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Here. Okay. Super transgender conspiracy theory up here.
Yeah, true.
Biden, president of the United
No.
States, as actor above that.
Dude, I thought you were gonna give me below.
Like 17 standard deviations.
That's crazy.
Between the,
That's
okay.
crazy. I think that should be
17
below.
standard deviation.
That should be below the transgender world leader wives.
And-
in my chart,
Oh,
the clone is down
swap
here in
them.
the middle.
Okay, so we all agreed that
You-
the
what-
Trudeau
what-
thing here.
what-
You
yeah.
were swapping out the
Yes.
actor below. So you
Yes.
think Biden is more likely
want that on the
to
record.
be
clone. It depends on which day it is, but it could be a clone, a deep fake,
a clone of Biden?
or there's a
Like
whole
a body
system of
double
below.
or like a full-on clone?
Both.
Now, hold on.
Depends on the day.
Wait,
It depends on the day.
guys. It is a fact that powerful world leaders have body doubles.
Yeah.
That's not a conspiracy theory at all.
Yeah.
So why would they not periodically use a body double? I mean, Putin does it.
Well, that's
Or
a
I
different
should say
argument.
Putin's been accused of doing it. There have been people who are like, that kind of doesn't look like him.
Which one is it? That there are body doubles, which I'm.
Body doubles
I
are
think
a
that's
fact.
over here. I don't know for presidents of the United States that that's a fact.
I'm not saying for presidents, but
Yeah, like Saddam Hussein, yeah,
powerful,
had-
powerful
yeah,
world
had-
leaders and politicians throughout history have used body
for sure.
doubles.
So is the theory that he has a body double, or that they just replaced the president with the body double?
I
Well,
think
so
anything's
here's the point. Here's the point. I don't think Biden was replaced. I think Biden got surgery. People are like,
Agreed.
look at these two people. They look so different. I'm like, look at the man's face. They pulled it back.
So who was
Called a
who was
facelift.
but
He's
who was
trying to
the
stay young.
recent who was the recent Biden with the scrotum chin?
That's the same Biden. What do you
Same
mean?
Biden, because that was a different chin.
Dude, camera angles, like you can take a look at any of the thumbnails of me and see some days I'm like my face is poofier, I have bags under my eyes.
But that chin was saggier than most other like angles would give. You know, you could have a bad angle.
So I got to be honest, it probably sounds gross, but you can see sometimes when he turns his neck, it pulls the skin out from his shirt and then it hangs like it was tucked in.
Well, that's because it's a mask. A CIA agent is.
Oh, right.
The only time I believe there was possibly a body double was during, I think it was 2021. They were going to, they always go to Delaware all the time, but there was a phase where he was wearing his aviators and he had a mask on and he wasn't holding hands with Joe Biden. And there was a moment where I was like, maybe they feel like they can't send him into public.
Who wasn't holding hands?
Joe and
was
Jill.
Jill, the first
and
lady.
they typically are pretty PDA in public. And it made me wonder, like, maybe they feel like he is too medically fragile to like go out and catch pneumonia or COVID or whatever. That was the only time that I was like, maybe this is when they're sending someone else in.
Wearing a mask and glasses, so you can't even see his face. It's not even
It's
that
the
complicated.
perfect time not to risk his
But
health.
I want to say this about Bridget Macron and Michelle Obama is that think about how brutal it must be to be a middle-aged woman and have people be like, the only explanation for her appearance is that she's a man. You know, it's just like...
It's driving sales in the beauty industry,
Well, that's
right?
the world they created, so let them have it. You know.
For real?
They're constantly questioning whatever gender means and
I
all these
think
things.
in defense of the Macrons, I don't think that they're as far out on the transgender stuff as the Obama family is.
yeah.
So
where does that fall on your scale?
Interesting.
on plausibility?
Yeah.
I think neither of them are men.
Okay.
But I think.
Shane's
but
like, I'm ready to throw hands
I think it's a
over here.
We
little.
can still be friends.
But so I'll put it this way: if someone came to me, actually, I have a friend of mine. I'm hanging out in his living room, and we're in California. Shout out Robbie, and he's fucking text me now. And he was like, "Michelle Obama's a man," and I was like, "Robbie, stop!" And he's like, "I'm telling you, dude." And then he pulls up YouTube and he starts showing me all these videos, and I was like, "Oh, come on, man! Look, yeah, there are these videos that show like Michelle Obama." And like
Dancing on Ellen.
dancing
Yeah.
on Ellen and things like this. And I'm like, I don't think this proves what you think it proves because like any any trans person is going to tuck. They sell tuck-friendly bathing suits. Like, I don't think you're seeing what you think you're seeing. And honestly, I'm like, I don't know what the point of the conspiracy theory is, other than just like insult Michelle Obama as being ugly or something and manly or whatever.
I think it's all part of the erosion of reality.
But that being said, if someone came to me and said, look at this photo of Joe Biden from this recent event, that's a body double, I'd say, oh, it's possible. You don't immediately dismiss that because politicians use body doubles. I think it would be absurd to argue that Saddam Hussein had a body double, but the American politicians don't. Vladimir Putin has a body double, but American politicians don't.
Right.
Okay, maybe members of Congress.
The price of saying the president is using a body double is lower here than it was in Saddam's Iraq. I mean, I feel like is there a Tim Pool show in Iraq? I mean, you just kind of...
What do you mean?
Well, I just feel like nobody was allowed to even say it. Like, so you just,
in Iraq?
Pretty much, yeah.
Well, yeah, sure. But in the United States, I'm just saying that if someone came to me...
It's far more likely that Biden has a body double than either of these people.
I say it's actually probable in all likelihood.
It's a breaking of norms, for sure.
I don't think so.
I don't think any president's ever had a body double that I'm aware of. It's not documented.
Well, right.
It's possible this
It's
happened.
national security.
I see.
We're talking about a country where we've had... How many presidential assassinations have there been? And how many assassinations? Two assassinations?
No, 5.
Five?
4 or 5.
McKinley,
4 or 5.
JFK,
Arthur?
Oh, Garfield.
Garfield, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just thinking
Yeah.
Arthur, Garfield,
Yeah.
McKinley,
The obvious ones.
Kennedy, Lincoln, maybe only 4.
Right.
Right. So
But then
why
there's the
would they
attempts
come out
after
and be
that.
like, by the way, we're using a body double? You know what I mean?
I see.
And if they were to come out afterwards and say, by the way, we're using body doubles, that would compromise the security of existing leadership.
I feel like it's more likely to have happened in the 60s or 70s because the cameras were less sophisticated.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, but when
it was just a lot easier to pull this stuff in the 60s and 70s.
Sure.
Like there weren't all these things.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even by the early 70s, I mean, what did in Nixon? Like the fact that things were recorded. Before then, less things are recorded.
Right. You know, Hillary Clinton was campaigning in 2016 and she put on a Southern drawl, not realizing that the internet existed.
But she still pulled out hot sauce on Charlemagne's show.
Yeah.
You know?
She does not understand what the internet is like.
Yeah.
But my point is, I would argue, sure, there's probably a probability that body doubles aren't being used, but I'm willing to bet that the United States government uses body doubles.
Right. This to
That's
go back to the. Oh, sorry, not to.
No, it's just like rudimentary security.
I think what fuels the Macron thing is that it was alleged that one of the classified documents that President Trump is alleged to have confiscated or stolen was basically an intelligence dossier about the Macrons, and so the theory was that there was some sort of salacious, like, sex stuff. But I think it's far more likely to be like that than like...
Isn't it enough that he married the person who probably groomed him? Like, he is actually a child
So this is a
victim?
diversion tactic.
Like, yeah, that would make her more acceptable if she was a man. She would be like, wow,
Totally
first
accepted.
trans,
Yeah.
first lady. Like,
Vote her in next.
I think it's weirder that it's actually the obvious.
What exactly is your argument?
Oh, I'm just saying, like, they
He's
met
been
when he
groomed.
was a student in her school. So arguably you could say
I mean, that
theoretically
would be
the salacious-
illegal. That would be assuming that there was sexual contact. That would be
Right, I'm
illegal in the
saying
United
if,
States, but
if
not
you're
in
saying
France.
there's like a
That's a great
salacious
point.
issue, I mean, either way, it's not great optics, right? Like, I think it's weird that she
I don't
would
think it
be
was
his teacher.
that much of a hindrance in France.
Yeah,
I
France
think
has
that
weird
The
laws.
thing that the
Well, and
allegation.
he's a boy, so they
well,
would
the
treat him
allegation in
differently
French
anyways.
politics is that he's gay, and so not so much this. I mean, although obviously enough people believe this if this is in the courts, but like the big thing is that he's somehow not straight.
Is that how they lampoon him like that in like their satire?
It was a bigger issue in the 2017 campaign. There's a Netflix documentary about it, and it's in French. It's about the campaign, and like there's like a clip of Macron talking, and I forget if it's in the French or the English,
Right.
but forgive me, I'll just impersonate it. He was like, "Why is it that every man who is dates another woman is assumed to be a gigolo or a homosexual? I don't understand." And so like that was like very
Right.
that was very overt in
Right.
in that campaign, and like the Le Pen party, the Front National, which has been renamed, was very big at sort of subtly propagating that view. But I do think French sexual mores are just super different than
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah.
This doesn't even
Yeah,
particularly strange.
And
I
if
just
he
wanna
is
say-
gay, wouldn't he be mad because the current prime minister is openly gay? Like, if he had to have this beard for all these years for nothing.
I don't think he's gay.
I don't think he is. I'm just saying if he were.
Right.
I'm looking at this story and I'm like, man, you know, Candace Owens running a segment where she says she bets her career that Bridget McCrone is a man. I'm like, sometimes I wish I had the gall to say such a thing, because you get headlines, you build followers, you make a lot of money doing that stuff.
What bank is going to take the house when that's not true? I'm here from the
like,
career bank, and I would like your career.
I'm not
as
saying
collateral.
I'm not literally talking about a bet. I'm saying like Candace Owens saying such a provocative thing certainly will make her a household name, and her career is benefiting from it. There's no loss of her career from saying anything like this. I don't doubt her that she truly believes this. I'm just saying I wish I sometimes believed these things, and then I could make videos like that instead of just being like probably not.
Let's come up with something good for you.
The Earth is a donut.
There we go.
It's both flat and hollow.
Yeah, that needs to be the clip tomorrow.
Donut Earth theory.
Yeah. Tim Pool believes the Earth is a donut. It's amazing. And we can go and look at like the past of all the time she's talked about The Simpsons. You don't see these weird Homer connections.
I didn't realize there
Did
were
Vice
donut
really
people.
fall for
there's
this?
donut people.
Look at this.
Who's the
No.
Who is?
Is your picture in this?
I don't
already?
know, but I posted this image and I said the world isn't flat; it's flat and hollow, which would make it a donut. Donut.
When is this from?
They need a celebrity.
I don't know. Did I make the cut?
They need-
Celebrity. Tim
we need
Pool's their mascot.
We need a donut guy.
So there's this news channel for skateboarding called Shredder.news.
Yep.
And they write about me so often. There's a conspiracy theory that it's mine and I run it, which I do not. I don't know have anything to do with it. And it certainly does write about us quite a bit. It could be because we're infusing money into the skateboard industry, an industry that is dying. But I forgot where I was going with this.
Donuts.
Right. Someone commented on one of the stories that, Tim Pool is bad. And someone was like, why do you think Tim Pool's so bad? And they said, because he believes it should be illegal to not believe in God. And I love this, because if you meet someone who knows who I am, there are a few things you will perceive based on what they believe. So I simultaneously tweeted, it should be illegal to not believe in God. And then I tweeted an hour later, it should be illegal to believe in God. Now what happens is the left only shares the one where Tim Pool is the fascist, theocratic guy. So now they're all saying, Tim Pool thinks you should be forced by law to believe in God. That clearly shows this person has never engaged with any of the content we actually do on the show. Mm-hmm. And it's, in essence, it's something called coloring the water, where you can see you don't need to ask them their politics.
Right.
You don't need to ask them what they're going to vote for. You can literally say, what do you think about Tim Pool? And they say, he thinks it should be illegal if you don't believe in God. And it's like, okay, you're a Biden voter.
Right.
And then you have people who will say, the funny thing is, most Trump voters will likely know both tweets exist. But they'll still, the more heavily theocratic individuals are attacking me for saying not believing it should be illegal to believe in God or something like that. They're like, how dare you say
You're creating your own Mandela effect for your own biography.
Right.
So like people believe two separate things, even though you're putting out both realities.
Here's the important thing, ladies and gentlemen, listen to me. There's a reason why I did this. The next time someone says to you, yeah, but Tim Pool said it should be illegal to not believe in God, say, what are you talking about? He never said that. And when they say, yes, he did, he tweeted it, you can Google the tweet where I said the opposite and say, look, March at 9 a.m., he says it should be illegal to believe in God. And they'll go, huh? No, he's a what?
Yep.
Because these people don't investigate and research this stuff. You can shatter their minds in an instant.
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying to trick them. The point is actually quite simple. Their worldview will shatter in an instant when they say, but I watched insert leftist commentator who showed me the tweet of Tim Pool saying it should be illegal to not believe in God. And then you can say, here's the tweet right here on my phone, on Twitter right now. Believing in God should be illegal, it says. And they're going to go, I was lied to.
I hate to poke just this little hole in the theory, though, because I've shown people things like the good people on both sides argument, and they still, after seeing the video,
I hear you.
will be like, he
That's
still
fine.
said it.
What?
They'll see the video and still believe in the narrative that they came to
Some
the
people
story with.
are lost.
Yeah.
But for the people who can be shattered from the matrix,
Yeah.
those people that are watching these leftist commentators who made all these videos saying Tim Pool said thing, you can easily now link to my tweet saying the opposite thing. And then they'll be like, at the very least, they'll say, wait, I don't understand. How is this possible?
Yeah.
I saw a tweet where he said this other thing. How is a tweet existing that says the exact opposite? And you can say, you can choose to tell them the truth. He tweeted both things to prove a point. the left is going to lie to you about what he's actually saying. Like I think it was Patton Oswalt or Ricky Gervais who did this a long time ago, where back before there were tweet threads, he tweeted something shockingly racist, and then the next tweet completed the context, inverting the claim. And so people found tweets from, I can't remember who it was. It might have been Ricky Gervais. I'm not sure. But it was saying things like, I just can't believe insert group of people would actually want to do something like this. It's horrible. Then the next tweet was that someone would actually believe they would even do something like that because I don't believe that's true for a moment. So it would created this, dichotomy or whatever.
That's great.
But if you Google search, it should be illegal Timcast, you will see two tweets. One saying believing in God should be illegal. It should be illegal not to believe in God. And when you run to leftists who are this is what I'm sick of. The leftists who will say Tim Pool said thing, and they will share things out of context. So I created a scenario where, of course, they took the bait. They ran full speed with it. They were screaming and hollering because they're morons who don't care for truth, and they don't care if they get caught. They just wanted the juicy tweet, tweeted the opposite on the same day, less than an hour later, or about an hour later. And now whenever someone who's been indoctrinated by the psychopath says Tim Pool thinks X, you can be like, rant, here's my phone, opposite.
How long have you been doing this?
Oh, I've been doing stuff like that for a long time. I've tweeted various contradictory things like that for this explicit purpose. So people often say, like, how can I had a friend say, how do I convince my family that they're being lied to? And it's difficult. Okay, for young people that are getting all their news from the Young Turks or Hassan or Vosh or whatever, Vosh once ran a segment where there was a clearly sarcastic tweet. And he's like, the thing about conservatives is that they fundamentally believe, and then he inserts some insane argument I never made. And the Young Turks, they took a tweet of me. I can't remember what, I remember what it was. I remember a Republican arguing for 16 and 17-year-olds to be able to work 40 hours a week. And I said something like, yes, our kids need jobs, which was like tongue-in-cheek, half kidding. And they all pretended like it was the most serious thing I've ever stated without actually providing the context of the purpose of the tweet, the purpose of the labor argument. And so it's things like that where I'm like, they intentionally lie to you because they're grifters. So when people say, how can I prove to people they're lying? That's what I did. And now you can say, oh, where did you hear that Tim said that? Okay, I just Googled it. He said the opposite. He said, actually, it should be illegal to believe in God. And then they're going to say, was I lied to? And you say, yeah, you were lied to. You were lied to. It was a series of sarcastic joke tweets.
Yep.
Or you can just say, I don't know, question who showed you a fake tweet, I guess. Yeah. And that's going to force them to be like Mandela affecting them, basically. Yeah. They're going to be like, I swear I saw. No, you saw a fake video from some far leftist who lies to you all the time. Congratulations. But we're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button? In case you didn't see in the poll, 1 like equals 1 prayer for Mr. Bokus. I'm doing that as a joke. I hope everyone realizes that's an old meme from like Facebook where they'd be like 1 prayer equals, or 1 like equals 1 prayer. But 52, the poll was rest in peace to the king or long live Mr. Bokus. And rest in peace to the king is currently winning at 52%. So smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us to become a member. It was my birthday over the weekend. If you want to give me a birthday present, sign up, support our show because the show is made possible thanks in part to viewers like you. We're also going to have that uncensored show coming up at 10 p.m. and you'll be able to hang out in our Discord server with like-minded individuals. But get in your super chats now because we're going to read them. The first super chat we got is Clint Torres, who says, howdy, people. Remember, in life, one must ye the haw before the haw yees you. Tim, my deepest sympathies and rest in peace, Mr. Bokus. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Shane H. Wilder says, Requiescat. Is that how you say it? How do you pronounce that? Requiescat in Pachi. Rest in peace. Mr. Bokus, what language is that?
Latin.
Oh, it's Latin. My love and condolences to the whole Timcast crew. We grieve with you. He will be missed, certainly. Raymond G. Stanley Jr. says, baby birds left for dead while baby bunnies lost their head. The terrorizer trounces with perfect timing. A mouse in his mouth was perfect dining. Rip Mr. Bokus. He was the cast cat with the mostest. Matthew Roos says, please keep focus with Mr. Bokus in honor of his time here on Earth and my condolences in regards to his passing and happy birthday for the weekend. So Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience will be retiring. It doesn't feel right to just keep having that up, but we're going to we're likely going to launch something in the future that will be called The Legend of Mr. Bokus, and it'll be totally different. So I recommend that if you want to get the last remaining bags of Mr. Bokus Pumpkin Spice Experience or the K-Cups, you get them now. Maybe keep them as a collector's item or whatever you want to do, but we're going to be moving those on. And Re-Rise with Roberto Jr. also. We wanted to do a special holiday thing, but the minimum order was 5,000. So I was like, all right. So it's now several months after Halloween. We still have many of those. But we did launch a promotion for those that are on the email list. There's a promo code. I don't know what it is. But when you buy Re-Rise with Roberto Jr., you get 25% off 2 other bags of Cast Brew coffee. The one thing I want to say, there's a lot of Mr. Bokus tweets. Tricky Hickey says, rest in peace to Mr. Bokus, not first. I got to tell you, when last night after the show, well, actually, yesterday when I came in to the studio, Mr. Bokus was standing. There's like I don't know what it is. I think it's like, is an air conditioner or something. There's like a box downstairs.
It's a mystery box.
But it's like I don't know, some appliance that we've never opened for some reason. I don't know. And I put a blanket on it for him because he likes to sit in front of the door and watch as people come and go. So yesterday when I came in, he was standing there with his eyes half open and he went at me. And I was like, oh, geez. And you could smell what I assume was urea or something on his breath because his kidneys were breaking down. And I was like, okay. So I immediately sent out some texts like, hey, guys, I think he's in renal failure. And that night at the show, I got a text from my girlfriend, Allison, that he had blood in his stool and we think this might be it. He couldn't stand up. He was struggling to walk earlier in the day. And when Kara tried to pick him up, and I was like, maybe sit with him, he squirmed a little bit. And when she put him down, he just fell to the ground. He couldn't stand up. So we think maybe he had a stroke, or I don't know if it was a stroke, but he was losing function of his limbs. And so we knew what was coming. This morning, I know we didn't know if he was going to make it through the night. This morning, we got a text from Kara, and she was like, he's groaning, wheezing. He can no longer stand up at all. He's just laying there. And so we've constantly gotten recommendations from like vets, bring him in, give him the shots. And I was like, absolutely not. I was talking to Alex Stein about it, and he said, they'll always tell you to bring your animal in to get him to put down. Don't do it. He said that, one of his cats was dying. It crawled into his lap, and he sat there with it as it died. But I'll tell you this. So I decided what we'll do is we will lay him in the grass. We'll bring him outside because we used to let him go outside all the time, but he started getting sick. We couldn't. We let him outside a couple of weeks ago. He collapsed, pissed himself. I think it was too much for his heart. And so I figured if this is his last moment, then we will bring him outside and lay him in the grass so he can have sunshine and fresh air and he can smell everything and it'll be his last moment. But I'll be completely honest. I don't want to prolong his suffering. And so I don't want to keep him in the house in the dark. He probably would have lived a little bit longer. I assumed that by laying him in the grass, the cold earth, which was probably around 45 to 50 degrees, maybe between there, would likely begin to pull the heat from his body and he would fall asleep and just die from exposure. I assume that's what happened. Took about an hour. And I just feel like that was the best way to deal with it. Bring him to a doctor where they just stick a needle in him. Sounds just like the most horrible final moments of your life. Just like, ugh.
Well, and in his condition, he could have died on the drive, which would have been
I know, he
stressful
would have
for
been
him.
shocked and scared. And I'm like, let's lay him down in front of the chickens he always loved to stare at. And he wanted to eat them. And as soon as we laid him down, he immediately, like, his head moved a little bit. And you could see that he started sniffing. I think he was very excited to, see the chickens. And then he started to fade. The point I want to make with this story is there was a point where something happened. He was still alive, but I believe it became apparent that his soul left his body. That's the only way I can explain it. He was sitting there. He was struggling to breathe. He was going, his heart was barely going. And then all of a sudden, he straightened his body out. His eyes went wide. He kept breathing, but he was gone. And I was like, wow. I was like, that, I'm not going to pretend that cats have souls. Seamus describes it as there's different kinds of souls or whatever. But it really felt like before he actually died, whatever Mr. Bokus was, left that body. Wow. And what was left was just the body of a cat breathing. His eyes went wide, and then he just breathed slowly, and then eventually stopped breathing, and then went, that's it. Yeah. And I saw the last fleeting moments of his heart, and then all of a sudden it was stillness. It's crazy. And then within like a couple hours, his eyes were just like white, like just blank. But that's the point of that story is it really seemed like there was a point, and I think it was like 9:36. His soul was gone.
Right.
Like, and I'm thinking to myself, like, the entity of death has ferried him on. You ever see that show, Dead Like Me? Mm-mm. The point of the show, that lasted 2 seasons. The point of the show was, before people die, reapers will remove your soul from your body and you don't experience the death. Whoa. So I don't know. I don't know the secrets of the universe, but I kind of felt like he had left before his body actually shut down.
Yeah, it's like a sacred moment to be there when an animal or a person has died. Unfortunately, I've seen both, and it's just unpleasant, but sacred.
Yeah.
If it's like, you know, when it was with the people, I was unfortunately in hospice. So it was like this very slow, humane, I guess, as humane as it could be, not like a violent death. And then the animals on the farm, I just have to dig their own graves. It was a wild life.
I'm sure the science will tell you, Tim, what actually happened was that his higher brain function shut down as his body went to an emergency mode to protect its internal organs. And what you're actually experiencing was a loss of conscious function,
right,
akin to a coma.
Right.
I'm sure. But I don't know. It felt like he was just totally gone.
Yeah.
All right, let's read some more super chats. Appreciate all of the condolences. Mitchell Foltz says, "Rip Mr. Bokus, another warrior joins the halls of Valhalla." And that's what I told him. I originally wanted to have a Viking funeral. We decided not to. We instead buried a hole outside of Freedomistan and we put a little cross in it. And I think it's funny, we're putting a cross together. I was like, we're all Christians, I guess. So, you know, crosses are the symbols that we use when we mark a grave. Is that why they do it? A cross?
Christian nation, you know.
Is that why though? I'm not a Christian, but you know, I do believe in God. But it's the moral tradition of my people.
Yeah.
In ceremonial burial to use a cross to mark the grave. All right. Violi says, "Celebrating 17 years with my cat Leo. Today he went to heaven. Thank you for all the love. You'll always be my Bubba." Sorry to hear, good sir. Laser Griff says, "So sad about Mr. Bokus. He'll be waiting there for you guys at the Rainbow Bridge." To Valhalla? I mean, he's a warrior. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a place he would choose to go, it would be to hunt and to slaughter. Like, we, of course, as everyone gathered around and we buried him, everyone had stories about how he like would mercilessly torture little birds. It's like, yes. I remember one time he caught a bluebird, maimed it so it couldn't fly, and it was lying on the ground huffing and wheezing and stressing it, and he would just stare at it. And the moment it would try to get up to move, he would just start doing the cat thing where he whacks it until it stops. And so I actually had to pick him up and move him away from it, and he started yelling.
You're interfering with his rite of passage as a cat warrior.
Yeah.
And then we used the air compression rifle to put that poor bird out of its misery. I was like,
Bucko's like, "So you stole all of my fun."
He would do it to mice too. He would catch a mouse, carry it around, and then he would just torture it. So, and we're like, "Oh, the poor kitty." And it's like all the poor animals that have been mercilessly tortured by
it's
this
the expression
thing.
"playing with your food," right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to imagine that like the mice watching us mourn the cat are like, they're with the enemy.
Evil.
Yep.
They're not for us; they're against us.
Jacob Hawley says, "Tim, I am in Haiti helping with relief efforts.
Jeez.
The whole government has collapsed and people are eating each other in the streets. We need help here. It's astounding. No Supreme Court, Prime Minister, President, or legislature who's in charge. Are you really down there? Wow, man, be careful. For real? Are they really eating each other, though? Because I know that the cannibal stuff was like shock and awe. But I am a firm believer that when society collapses, humans will begin to eat each other. If you, we have never seen societal collapse on the scale of humanity today. And so the machine of energy transfer from outside of cities into cities, you know, food, is a massive industrial machine and network. And if this machine breaks, you go back 100 years. How long ago was it that the average American family had one cow? They had cows. And so it was actually like one in every 3 families would have 3 cows or something like this. But your neighbors would have a cow and you'd have pigs or something like that. And if it really came down to it, you had a means to get food. You would go down, you knew where the farm was to pick up the things you needed. There was a butcher and he got his food source, so you knew you were much more connected. Now it's a grocery store with everything. Suppliers, distribution. With the amount of people living in major cities today, if society were to break down, New York would collapse in 3 days into, people would be drinking blood and eating each other. I am not surprised that we have Barbecue, a gang leader who eats flesh. It's shock and awe. Don't get me wrong, it's not sustenance. But if this country goes into civil war, I think people need to understand the American Civil War in 1861. It was a different time. It was a very rural, agricultural, a lot of development, and the North was mostly attacking the South. There was a limited incursion from the South into the North, where the North was more heavily industrialized. But think about where we're at today with 330 million people in this country, 13 million people in the New York metro. What is Manhattan going to become? If this country actually devolved into civil war, I wonder if A24 Civil War movie will talk about this. I doubt it. But one of the first moves to make for anyone in a conflict is going to be cut off supply lines. That's 101. Blockade of ports and sabotage of roads. And if New York City can't bring in food, I do not believe there will be a concerted effort from, let's say that like it goes A24 style, where you've got 5 factions or whatever. Whatever is in control of New York, they are not going to maintain airdrops of food to 2.5 million people on Manhattan Island. Impossible.
Right.
So if the bridges get sabotaged, Manhattan is an island.
That's what happens at the end of the Batman movie, of the trilogy.
Right.
They takes out
try
the
to,
bridges and they isolate the city, and then they're going to blow it up.
But people would start eating each other. I mean, food stores would run out very quickly. Perishables are gone in 3 days.
What's the time between the toilet paper freak out and then cannibalism?
I think within a month, you likely have full-scale cannibal gangs.
Jeez.
Within a month. But I think it's probable that within a week, you have cannibals.
Right.
I think it's possible that within 3 days, you have cannibals because people need to drink something. They'll probably die, but I imagine they'll be drinking each other's blood. I mean, you're in Manhattan Island, and if the water stops, what do? You can't drink seawater.
Right.
People will flee the island in mass. And if the bridges are taken out, they'll be swimming across. A lot of people will die, but very few people will remain on Manhattan Island because there's not going to be water.
Yep. And remember, people, once a cannibal, always a cannibal.
This is true.
Can't take that back.
You cannot take that back.
Reza Aslan is a cannibal.
Always will be, even if he never has another human brain again.
Yep. Even if he never does, once a cannibal, always a cannibal. Brian Dayton says, very reminiscent of the Hillary Clinton email case. Yes, she broke the law, but we won't charge her. Same here for Joe. Just more of Democrats getting away with anything they want. Nothing will ever be done. That's right. And Republicans are centrists. The Democrats appointed to go after Donald Trump will say, we will find any reason to criminally charge him. And the Republican appointed to go after Joe Biden says, he did break the law. He did have motive. He was going to profit off it. He did say he wanted to profit off it because he wanted to write a book and he was going to make money from it. But he's a well-to-do old man with a bad memory, so we're going to let it slide.
Didn't they also say he said there was precedence of him being allowed to take the documents?
I don't know about that one.
I forgot who asked that, where it came up, but that was something else I heard today.
But it's remarkable that they were like, it is in the, Robert Hur's like, it is in the report that he was going to make a book. He intended to, and he knew people wanted to buy it from him, and that he needed the classified information for that book. And then he's asked, and he warned the ghostwriter to be careful because some of this is classified. Yes. And the ghostwriter then deleted the conversation knowing it was illegal and that you were investigating. Yes. And then he was like, why didn't you arrest the ghostwriter? And he's like,
it's hard for us to say.
Yep. There's no answer. There's no answer for why the ghostwriter didn't get arrested for destroying evidence.
Right.
Man, it's absolutely wild. WH says average age of the House is 58. Average of the Senate is 65. And average age of Americans is 38. Not sure the average age of illegals. Rip Bokus. What should the average age of Americans be? It should be way lower than 38, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I think certainly. In our defense, it's lower.
Really,
it's lower.
38.
It's old. Yeah, I mean, it's not as old as China or Korea or Japan. Right. But I mean, we're trending toward and I mean, just as a context, young age is not always good, especially if your country's unstable. I mean, I think the median age in Gaza is like 19 or 20. The median age in Iraq, I believe the average Iraqi citizen was born after the invasion, 2003. So they don't even remember Saddam's reign. But a healthy society should look more like 28, 30, or at least what we understand a healthy society to have looked like before.
The line says $20 for Bokus, the king. I'm sure y'all have a charity picked out, but if not, please look into Alley Cat Allies. Shout out first heavyweight UFC champ Mark Coleman saved his folks from a fire in hospital with smoke inhalation. Wow. Shout out Mark Coleman. Yes. So everyone go to Casper.com and buy your Alex Stein Primetime Grind 2 times caffeine at the end of the month. We're going to take the proceeds. Alex Stein has foregone his all proceeds for his coffee brand in lieu of it being donated to a cat charity, which we will do. We will donate that money. We'll see what it is. I can't imagine it's gonna be a ton of money, but the more people buy Alex Stein's 2 times caffeine coffee, the more that will be donated. And additionally, drink responsibly. It's got 2 times caffeine. And Alex Stein's in the hospital for like a heart thing, and I'm like, oh. I hope he's okay. We're laughing now because we assume he's going to be all right.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully everything's all right.
We're laughing because we're bad people. I don't know what to say.
Yep. Brown Bear 992 says, Tim, have you been following the Sweet Baby Inc. controversy? Also, let's get a Culture War episode just debating the worst U.S. president. That's actually a pretty good one.
Yes.
So I guess the Culture War. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. The Culture War team was talking with Pearl Davis and the Daily Wire crew, and we had a date set, and then I guess they canceled and just did the show on their own or whatever, which is they're entirely allowed to do. But I guess the frustrating thing for us is that we did not know they were canceling on us. So like Pearl Davis wanted to do a show where she debates stuff. We offered. She said yes. Then we started looking for people to bring on, but instead she just went to Daily Wire Studios instead and did it individually with Michael Knowles, and so. Our crew didn't know, I guess.
That's a bummer.
Well, c'est la vie. You know, welcome to a media market.
Yep.
But whatever. You know, so we'll have stuff interesting anyway. We'll have good shows planned. All right,
we should get Candace on to debate Bridget Macron. I shouldn't have said that out loud. They're gonna take that idea.
You know, the difficult thing is like trying to host people who already have their own shows is probably pointless. You know, to do the debate with them, like if it was I was going to be debating them, makes sense. But if they want to debate each other, it makes sense for them to do their own show.
Well, unless they want to be here because it's a neutral platform.
Yeah, and I will
right?
say Candace just did the Chris Cuomo thing on PBD. It's possible.
Oh, she debated Chris Cuomo?
It wasn't so much a debate, but they definitely went back and forth a few times.
I want to get Chris Cuomo on Culture War.
Yeah.
The first thing I'm going to ask him is why did he lie about being in COVID lockdown?
Oh, I love
Has anyone asked him that yet?
I didn't see the Candace thing. I don't know if it was brought up.
Because Tucker Carlson talked to him. I didn't see the whole show. Did anybody watch that?
Mm-mm.
I wonder if he was like, you faked being in COVID lockdown. Why would you do that?
Yeah. Why was your brother a mass murdering governor?
Should we invite him on the show and then we'll No, I'll leave it there. We'll invite him on the show. We'll see what he says. All right, everybody, if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends, and head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member by doing just that. And the members only uncensored show will be coming up in a few minutes. You don't want to miss it. Not so family friendly, usually funny and good fun. And you as members actually get to call in and talk to us and our guests. So I recommend it. You can follow the show at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. And Serge, you want to shout anything out?
Yeah. Check out our website, theamericanconservative.com. We got good stuff. And I'm at Curt Mills, CurtMills. Thanks.
Awesome. It's been really, really great having you here. I loved all the fun facts. What was that? They're all born within 60 days of each other.
Yeah.
The
Trump, Hillary, and Bush.
Trump,
wow.
Clinton, and George W.
We're all born within 60 days of each other.
Within 60 days of each other in the summer of 46.
I love fun facts like that.
That's
it's
a good
just
one.
Great.
Yeah.
I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for scnr.com. That's Scanner News. I'm really grateful to be a part of that team. You can follow our work at Timcast News on Instagram and Twitter. You can follow me personally on Instagram at hannahclaire.b and on Twitter at HCBrimlow. Guys, thank you so much. Good to see you, Shane.
It was fun to be here. I'm Shane Cashman. You can find my books, the Inverted World series, online. We'll have the Inverted World live show up soon, I think, and it's gonna be a lot of fun. When people call in, talk about crazy stories. I will convince people like Curt that Joe Biden's a clone and that the clouds are fake. We'll get into that another time. And it was a pleasure being here.
I think the goal would be to do call-ins, but have it be through the Discord.
Yeah.
So if you're a member, you sign up and then you submit your ghost stories or your paranormal experiences or whatever.
Like weird stuff.
Yeah. And then whatever you think happened, Shane will tell you is actually way weirder than you realize. And
I'll let you know. I'll be here.
I'm Serge.com. See you in the after show.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.